Whew, that was really fast. I'm impressed, you guys. We didn't have to count or anything. I don't know. I woke up at 4. I couldn't sleep. I was too excited. I feel like a light bulb went off yesterday. We're so excited to talk to you this morning. We have an airplane to build. So Christy is going to start us off with a prayer, and let's begin.
Father, Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Would you close your eyes for a minute? And for those of you who went to the falls yesterday, I just want you to imagine that's the wound of Jesus and the blood and water is pouring out of the falls. And you're going up there in the Maid of the Mist, and that's our merciful love offering. And we're going to ask God to pour out his love into our hearts. Let it be big and mighty. Let it be as big and mighty as we are weak and little. Lord, just pour it into our hearts so we can become that mist that sprays over all that we meet. Let us bring it back to our homes, our parishes, our families, our communities, and let it spread all over the nation. Come, Holy Spirit, fill the hearts of your faithful and enkindle in us in the fire of your love. Send forth your Spirit, and we shall be created, and you will reign the face of the earth. Mama Mary, we just give you our yes. Do with us what you will. We surrender everything to you, and we just pray that the Holy Spirit come down upon each one of us in here like never before. Fill us, consume us, set us on fire, and set us back home to bring this church to places we've never seen. We just pray for a great revival of our faith and just restoring and strengthening our families. We just pray for peace in our hearts so we can bring it home to our families and our church and just this apostolate, Lord. We just ask that you fill us with your Holy Spirit and set us on fire. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. All right. Well, we're going to start off today, and Simona Robinson is going to share a little bit of her testimony. And so, do you want to stay there? Or do you want to come up here? Okay, that would be great.
Is it just my ears, or is it quiet when someone talks here? Do you hear me there? You do? Okay, and it's my ears. I haven't heard anything. Good morning, my name is Simona Robinson. As I said, I'm originally from Austria, and just in case you wonder, I don't want you to concentrate on the accent and say, where is she from? Where is she from? She's from Austria. I wanted to listen what I say now. I only have 10 minutes. If you see Annie going, that's the thing. Okay, I was asked to give a quick testimony, and a life of 52 years, there's a lot to focus in. I want to share just a little bit how I came into the Catholic Church and how the Augustine Institute played a role in that in a way. So I came back, I found God found me in anyways. I became a follower of Christ when I was around 28 years old. In Austria, I was born and raised in a Catholic family, very nominal, a little bit cooler than lukewarm, I would say, actually. And with 28, I was in a crisis. I was writing my master's thesis in psychology, and I thought, I'm supposed to be one of the experts here in the country on the soul, right? I was always interested in people and the behavior. I was always interested in soul work. And I was finding myself writing and thinking, there is something I don't get. There's something beyond the soul. I mean, I can't go out. I can't go out and work with the souls of people. I'm missing something. And that brought up a journey to God. Have to cut here because of time. One day I drove on the Autobahn in Austria. Maybe you need God to drive on the Autobahn in Austria, I don't know. I looked out of the window, and literally between shifted gears, we have standards in Austria. I looked out the window and I knew there is a God. He is, and he cares, and he loves me. And that was such a shift of knowledge, a paradigm shift that I went home, and from that day on, I was glued to the Bible, couldn't stop reading it. And it was Protestants who reached out to me and sheltered me and put me into a group and discipled me. And so I became Protestant, right? I just want to share that as a takeaway why I put this Protestant part in the conversion is it can literally be overnight that God reaches into your life. So when talk to everyone, right? Because God can show up. Even if a person, I mean, I was an atheist for 18 years. I was in New Age stuff, right? No one would have thought that 24 hours later, this woman goes home, gets the next Bible and never stops reading it, right? So don't assume that the people you talk, the state they are there right now, they will be forever. Because a day later, they could need the CD you have in your pocket right now, right? So that's number one. Then I was, for about 20 years, a Protestant, married a Canadian pastor. I met him in Austria. He was a missionary. We had our daughter in Austria and moved to Canada then. And it was a kind of a desert time for me, you know, leaving everything behind. I'm a very relational person. I love people. And leaving all the people I left behind was a little bit hard, at least to say, to be honest. So my husband, in June 2010, was diagnosed with cancer. And there's good news, like bad news. Bad news is very aggressive. Good news, chemotherapy that works. So in this bout of chemotherapy, my husband had God really worked on his heart. You know, when you're so knocked out in a way, right? The voice becomes louder sometimes. And he said, Simona, I think God is inviting me to the Anglican Church to become a priest. Everything in me said, no, I couldn't stand liturgical churches, right? I mean, I was yeah, kumbaya, Jesus, I love you, girl, right? So, and to sit there and do what someone else tells me to do is just totally against my nature, even for an hour a week. So anyways, whenever I wanted to rebel, God said in a very gentle way, shut up, Simone, you know, this is the way I want your family to go. And so we did. And not even did God want me to go into a liturgical church, he also wanted me to move to Hamilton, which meant leaving Ottawa, where I made friends again, you know, unsettling everything, etc. I had a very well-running direct sales business that I loved it. I loved sales, I loved team building, you know, everything. But with this last move, it kind of got, anyways, it fell apart and I grieved it dearly. So 3 years, I finally got into that. And that part I have to leave out, unfortunately, because of time. But how the creed has really made me fall in love deeper with God by saying the creed. Just that's for me one of my favorite topics. Anyways, we move on to an evening one day when my husband said, Simone, I would like to talk to you. And I said, okay. It's nice when your husband wants to talk to you. It's just not with this voice. Kind of is like, okay, there's more coming. And he says, Simone, I think God is calling me into the Catholic Church. And then I started yelling. Forgive me. But that, I mean, I thought, okay, Anglican, I mean, it was already rough for relationships. Mind you, my husband's family, all our friends, you know, they're deeply evangelical Protestants. And I mean, the only thing that kept some relationships was that it was at least, you know, still sort of Protestant. It's now, if we say Catholic, it meant, for one thing, my husband has his whole life being pastor and missionary in the Protestant world. He did his PhD, right? I mean, which is a big investment for a family, financially and time-wise. But it all our friends, you know, there is some, I mean, and then the income. Who's going to hire? My husband is, I mean, I love him. He's an incredibly intelligent man, but let's say not so useful in the market where people work with hands, right? and well, it's just because all his life, you know, I mean, I don't hold it against him, but how do we live? And you say, well, it can't be so hard to be invited into the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church is great, but put yourself in a place God asks you today to become a Protestant, right? And and that means you have no income for some reason because you're the church secretary or, so God really asked me to give my life up in every way. And so forgive me that I yelled. And it was longer than an evening. I'm sorry. I think it chronically damaged my vocal cords actually. But so after a week, I said to Peter, I'm dead serious. I said to Peter, I knew Peter as a man of God and a man of prayer. So I thought, if he's coming up with that, and he told me, Simona, that's not just from yesterday, I didn't hear that the last week. I'm having that in prayer since months. So I thought, okay, it's just not fair to just say you're wrong. Every decision based on fear is a wrong decision, I think. It's not an invitation from God, usually, if it's based on fear. So I said to Peter, you know what, let's be rational here. Let's start a discernment process. So we started working with 2 spiritual directors, both with different ones, right? I went on a website, and I just clicked and thought, I want to work with this woman here, right? It was a lady who was 20 years a Protestant and came into the Catholic Church. And I said, are you serious? From all people, I chose you? Anyways, I met with her, but I tell you, I don't know. It just didn't click for me, right? I thought, nah, I don't get that peace. I don't get, I don't know. So in March 2015, actually on the 7th of March, we got tickets to something called the Jesus Rally. It's where people who are working with the Reimagined, Live Jesus thing here. So we got tickets. Okay, let's go there. So my husband, we took our 17-year-old daughter, no, by then she was 14-year-old daughter, and she brought a friend. So we went there, and 5,000 people, and all I felt was, I'm alone here. I don't feel like, it didn't feel like a gathering of brothers and sisters to me. That's a man with feather heads, and I'm like, okay. I saw tons of rosaries, which is not for someone who doesn't pray the rosary, right? A beautiful sight necessarily. It's like, it is. And so the morning went, and there were talks. Yes, they were nice, but in all fairness, I heard really good talks in my Protestant world too. I didn't need to go to the rally to hear good theology and good talks. So I thought, okay, they have good talks, good. At lunchtime, my daughter came from the youth side, and she said, Mom, my friend can't stand this because she's unchurched, right? And she's totally overwhelmed with these talks, the youth thing there. And so I thought, yeah, my way out. I said, Peter, I take the kids because this girl is really poor, right? Yes. And Peter said, to my surprise, you know what? I've never seen the aquarium downtown Toronto, this big Ripley aquarium. I would love to see that anyways. You stay here, I go with the kids. I said, oh, serious? And so I stayed. And the loneliness was very real there. In this one lunchtime hour, I didn't know what to do. And then, there were books. Life is good with their books, right? And so I thought, okay, at least I'll look at the books. Until they told me, when the talk starts inside, we have to put a sheet over that because not to create a competition. I thought, okay, and while I was looking and they were putting the sheets and I was kind of still trying to look at some books, right? I saw that there were priests gathering there and people were kneeling and there was a golden thing like this, right? And I'm like, what on earth is going on? And I needed a washroom. So I went there and everyone was hushing me and I was actually a little bit annoyed, right? I'm like, my body needs something here. Because I had no idea that this was a procession, that there was the monstrance, that there was supposed, that the blood and body of Jesus Christ, nothing of that, womb, right? Nothing. So I went to the washroom, and when I came out, these people were gone. I said, okay, books were done, so I thought I might as well go in, right? So I go into this room, and as I go in, it was very dark. You could tell there was a ceremony in a way, Elaine. these people come towards me, you know, right where I was with this golden thing and the priest around and incense. And again, this shushing me, right? Go, 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 go. And people were kneeling. And like, what on earth is that? So I found a little chair on the side. I thought, okay, I sit down and let that go because that is obviously really important here, right? And I sat down, and as they go by, and the monsters is right in front of me. Time stopped, heaven opened, and Jesus came. And he was standing in front of me, and he just said, follow me. And I'm sure some of you maybe all have experienced the presence of Jesus. But it's just a gap between him and us, you know, between my sinfulness. And I understand Isaiah when he says, woe to me. It's this pure holiness. And I just could sob. I wasn't prepared. I was in a state of annoyance, you know, being annoyed. I just sobbed, you know, being so happy that he is here and he says to follow. And, you know, in that moment, I knew with all the spiritual direction, which was good, Jesus came to answer a question of my heart I didn't even know I had. And the real question was, will I find you in the Catholic Church, Jesus? Because that was, I didn't know, because the culture I didn't know, right? And by saying to me, follow me, he himself said, I will follow me, because I will be there. And in that, that took about 3-5 minutes. It's hard when time stops to say how long it took, right, in a way. But again, like on the Autobahn, I got up and I was a new person. And I got out. The next day, I phoned this one priest information who has offered to talk with me about the Catholic Church. I said, I need to know about the Catholic Church. And guess what he did? He brought me 15 CDs from the Augustine Institute. And I probably ruined 2 CD players. And I was glued, and it was everything, and I needed it now, and I needed it fast. And I said to Peter, don't you dare holding me back. I run into this church now. And I did. So I just want to encourage you, when you go and you are trembling at the phone, phoning a priest because you think, I'm interrupting him, I'm annoying someone, I'm stealing the time, I don't know if they need it. Be an advocate for little Simonas. They are everywhere, who are just on the edge, and they need the next day. They need to know about this Jesus in the Catholic Church. Amen.
Absolutely love that. Little Simonas. Can I have a piece of paper? No one's, no, it's working now, but nobody's on there. So. All right. Well, let's jump in today, and we have a little, not a total variation, but the Holy Spirit is wholly present. And so first thing I want to do, and I meant to do this yesterday, but really, really quickly, I just want people to rapid fire. What are some of the things you want to get out of the next 2 days? Questions, things to talk about. I just want to hear kind of rapid fire, throw it out. Doesn't hurt to put it on the list. If we could get to it, we will. We'll try to incorporate it. But any questions, any things you want more direction on? Pass the secretary. Great. Yep. Pass the secretary. Great. I'm sorry. Deeper into discovery. Thanks, Mark. Go, like events and conference? Confidence building. Thanks, Carl. Realistic goal setting? Patty?
Once you, after the discovery, when do you start working with the SMA versus what you're supposed to
Yes. When to pull in the SME at the end of discovery. I do not want you to walk home and be like, oh, I mean, I had this question and I forgot to ask it, or, you know, like, this is our time together. So it's so hard to do these things over the phone. This is our chance.
More about what the how to fit it in, and also that everything. How do you do that compared to years relationships? How do you keep? I'm assuming that's
Right. Yes. Okay, so the question, in case you couldn't hear it, is how do you get in there to do a discovery with parishes you've served for years? You know, it's how do you, that might feel awkward, so how do we make it not feel awkward? Okay, great. And more with the SMEs, how is this going to all work together? Okay, awesome. The technology barrier. Yeah. Yes, how to deal with that objection. Okay. Okay. Easy game plan for beginners. Oh my gosh. Doesn't this does not confirm that Brown, this does not confirm everything we've been talking about. Okay. Did I pay them all to say those things? No. All right, so we have to kind of unveil here. We just, and Chris, it's so crazy. Yesterday, I just kind of had this like we want to, we're building the plane in the air for this model. But we talked, Julie, Brian and I, Dan, Mark, we weren't like, it was hard because we couldn't really say anything because it's not really there fully developed, but yet we want to talk about it today. But so we're just going to talk about it and just build the plane with us. But here's what I'm trying to say is we have a vision for what is going to happen here, where we're going. And it is getting so exciting. And I think we just want to start to kind of really unveil it right now. And I think we were kind of holding back, who knows why, but we're ready to unveil this. So we got this email from someone this morning, and it was, again, one of those confirmations. It was a parish consultant, and she had, I don't know, 7 paragraphs of things that she's been thinking about and questions about the new employee model. And I'm telling you, every single one of those questions, I feel like we could answer. Not yesterday, I couldn't have felt like as convicted as I do now, but something clicked last night in this conversation. You know, it's all leading up to this. So the grand plan is this. We have been, it seems, in labor pains. That's the only way I can describe the last couple years. All the men were going to tell you right now. No, but what that is, it's not easy to describe labor pains. But I feel like it dawned on me this morning, we have been laboring pains. It has been painful. I think these two have, and all of you, you've all felt it. It might have been a moment of like, what? Like, who, what? Like, what's going on? Or maybe you were kind of verbally attacked. Like, there's just been unrest and anxiety, not completely, right? But just moments, and then there's joy again, and then there's frustration, and then there's hope, and all these emotions. And it probably will always be like that, but I think it was different than the first 8 years, right? Am I speaking the right language? Okay, I'm seeing a lot of heads, and if you haven't been with us as long, it might be that reality for you, because you kind of came in and but maybe it is. Anyway, I that's my experience, and I hear it and I sense it. But we are birthing the baby. We right now have a new baby. Right now, like, we're done with the labor pains. Our baby is here, and here, Brian and Julie, maybe you guys can come up and join me and just talk through this a little bit. We're just our brainstorming session. So pretend that it's like 6 in the morning and you get a phone call from Brian. I got to talk to you right now. Or Julie, you know, patch in Julie or something. So we're just going to reenact like these phone calls that have been happening, and we're wrestling with all these things, and we all know it, right? But so basically, we're going to start calling you guys. That's the fun part. But maybe you guys can kind of come over here so you can join there.
I just want to say I'm glad to hear about this new baby because that explains why I'm so excited.
Oh, sure.
Good morning. Who's on?
I don't know if we can hear.
Okay.
This is sign language.
Okay, so this is the dawn of a new day. We have the chance right now to unite, completely unite, and everyone use the gift God's given you. And yesterday we talked about phone approach, and I heard from a couple of you. I hate last night at dinner. I hate the phone. It scares me. I just, that part I can't get over. And the light bulb went off last night. Before I left, Brian's jumping out of his pants because this is all coming together. He's like, this is it. We need to bring everyone together. We need a team, a division, right? We have divisions. We have servant leaders. It's going to be a division manager and the account managers. They're a team. They own this area. You know, their diocese, there are a couple dioceses. But guess who's missing in our team? Well, a lot of people. If we just think of this team, we're missing a lot of people. Because first of all, this is not one team. The Augustine Institute has many teams. Think of them all. What are some of the teams that are working all for the Augustine Institute? Different arms.
The board.
What's that? The board. Yes. The board. Customer service. Video production. What's that? Shipping. Implementation. Cares care. Customer service. Form team. Louise, Karis, and Cassie orientation. The school. Grad school. Grad school. It goes on and on. And what this one piece he put in her email was, we gotta stop pitching product. We gotta stop telling Father, like, we gotta sell him something. We gotta tell him he gets all of us. We're here. All of us are here for you, Father. I'm not here. And Brian's been saying this, and it's like, it's fine. We're not here to sell him, right? We're so much bigger than that. So much bigger than that. And so how do we let everybody do their job? Well, right now, I think the closest team, there's these teams that are closer to us. We're not close to video production. We're not as close to shipping, right? Who are we closest to? We're actually closest to the E-team, and we're farthest from the E-team. We're absolutely farthest from the people we should be closest to. What a shame. Like, what a labor pain. We've been missing it, and God allowed it. God allowed it for a couple of years. But we have a new vision. And this vision is that your team will have some of these E-teams and these subject matter experts. You're the team. You're a team. And so let's differentiate the E-team and the SMEs, okay? Let's differentiate those two. Yes.
Oh, we're keeping it real. Okay.
so the thing is, if we can combine forces with the E team and the SMEs, the E team evangelization team, the last evangelization support team, they have been under Brian's guidance mastering the phone, absolutely mastering it. People like Lydia Sobozinski hated the phone. I trained her. She was scared to death of it. Guess what? She's now a full all day long. She calls priests. She dials, calls, talks to them. Wendy Mask, Brian. I mean, there's people that's their gift. They call and dial, and it's his gift, and he's now trained them because he trains them one-on-one. He gets in there. Well, what did you say? And tweaks them and works with them, and it's amazing. They start to be unbelievably successful. You know the numbers. Like, he knows how many people like he knows. They have it going on, and these people are good at it, and they do it, and they can keep doing it. And then you have the subject matter experts who've been diving into the meat of, signs of grace, or formed funding, or formed, or discovery. They've mastered the discovery. They've done it hundreds of times, right? Look at all these questions that we have. We're still learning, but they have mastered it. So the beautiful thing, the punchline, is that if you last night were like, I'm just not great with the phone, I can call the religious ed coordinator, I can call the youth director, let me talk about half all day. I can talk to those other people. I don't feel nervous, but the priest, right? Guess what we can do now? Wendy Mask, you're on my team. I'm going to talk to you every single morning for 15 minutes. Wendy, I need you to call this priest. Here's the situation. Okay, I would love to.
Please don't everyone call Wendy on.
So we're building this, right? We don't know how to do this one day, but this is the vision.
Well, I really appreciate that, because there are situations, and I have a couple that maybe because of customer service or something happened that the priest doesn't want to deal with it.
Okay.
And those are the situations where someone with more expertise.
Absolutely, that's another example. Perfect. You mentioned that.
Yeah, I just want to say that's a perfect example. That kind of humility, that's what we all have to say. Humility is, the definition of humility is seeing things as they really are. And that's exactly it. We need to be transparent. Like, that's true. And by the way, that's not just with you or your team or everyone here or the people in the field. That happens with people that have been on the evangelization support team. Or maybe even with an SME, like, they can tell, I think we need somebody else. Like, this person and I, if this relationship isn't flourishing, if you look at the fruitfulness, good fruit, good tree, then we need to mix things up sometimes. But it's a great example.
Perfect example, because we all have our own, or maybe they're, like you said, maybe somebody else has rubbed things the wrong way, and we're just, you need somebody who's ready to tackle that tough breach.
Or it's the right way, and just to get things to a different level, then this is, everyone's.
Okay. Okay. So that is the big part of the vision. Is that, and then but it overflows into, it's. I hope I haven't totally missed it, but that is the vision of that working together in unity, right? So everybody's role is defined, but it's not defined. It's defined in a sense where we are the feet on the ground, and then the evangelization support team is our phone support, right? They're there to call, to do discovery, and then we have our subject matter experts. So we can pull and formulate this as we need to. We can use each other. The same thing if a evangelization support person, Wendy, somebody calls us or she reaches out to a priest she's been working with, but they never had a parish consultant, and they're in Margot's area, right? Because they kind of live near each other. Well, guess what? Wendy can do. Tomorrow morning, what can she do? What's that? Well, okay, sorry. Wendy is too far away. She's only had a great hour-and-a-half long conversation with this priest who lives on the other side of the country. But what can she do that she never really has done before? What? Right now, there's a note, right? Like the way we've been doing it, it's like a note, and it's this disconnect, the last thing. But now, Wendy can be like, hey, I need you to pull in and be a team with me. Father needs someone there this weekend for the launch. Go, jump in. And guess what? There's people here who love to do launches, or there's people here who would absolutely this second go over and meet with Father and give him anything he needs. Help him in any way he can, right? Service, the heart, the prayer work, like it's all coming together. So you two, I can't really explain it any differently, or maybe there's a question, or but you guys elaborate, or any thoughts, questions.
Put words to it, and we really think the Lord has said, this is the model all along, and it's actually a model. I think this is a great start to what can be. You know, everyone aligned in the same way, or according to their role, their gifts, and the value that they bring. Because there's value all over. Every single person in this model has immense value, but positionally, by their own charism sometimes, it's going to be different. It's going to look different. And guess what? It's not going to be so rigid that, and by the way, this is the pilot, right? You guys are the pilot region. No one else in the country is doing this yet, because this is the pilot region. So, surprise, right?
You're piloting the plane in the air.
Here you go. So in one way, this is like brand new. In another way, it's really what we've been moving towards the whole time. And like Annie, I like the analogy of the birthing pains, especially since I didn't have to actually have them. I can, but so I think that's a really good start to see it as a team. There's multiple departments, if you will, that kind of come together on a working team, and it's based in a lot of our experience. We can't really talk about it all right now, but a team can figure it out. A team is going to have different people that have some, slightly different gifts, same role, but maybe they have slightly different gifts. And so the team in communication with each other, and they're, like, this is your team right here, you know what I mean? Plus some people from our team. We can figure it out together. The person that sent Andy this email this morning had a specific example she alluded to, and I'm like, I know exactly what she's talking about. She said, maybe there's a need. One of the people on the evangelization support team, he's not an SME, but he has been in contact with this pastor, and then somehow got in contact with the spouse, the wife of the Grand Knight. And they need a kiosk, they need form, they need everything, but it's like, how is this going to come together? And this person says, well, can someone come out here? Can someone please come out here? We have a meeting on Thursday. I'd like help with letting everyone know. It just so happens the person in the field called right about that same time. So, in the past, it's like, oh, we have people tripping over each other, and, who's supposed to be talking to them? And we're like, oh, gosh, here we go, No. Everyone's like, no, let's figure this out. How can we do it? Who cares that's what we exactly said. Who cares? We don't care about any of the lanes right now. We've got a customer that needs help. How do we help them the best way? And that's what we're moving towards.
Woo! I think one of the things it's kind of been a light bulb for me is that the employee model is really what's going to let us do this. And I think when Dr. Gray and Mark had that conversation back in June, that was never something we ever thought would be possible, and for a lot of reasons. But as we're going down that road, and we brought in our first 7 people October 1st, and we're looking to bring in another big batch on November 1st. I think as we're going down that road, that is really what can disarm this whole mentality of mine, you know, because when we grew up, for anybody who grew up in the Lighthouse days, you know, the early days, I think I had the whole state of Florida. Good luck reaching 700 parishes, Julie. And so you did feel like this is it. Was I effective in that? Some of the parishes, many, no. I mean, there were whole pockets I couldn't reach. And, you know, maybe I sold them dollar books at Christmas and didn't talk to them for a whole year. That's not good service. So with this employee model, team model, I think we're going to be really detached. And, you know, maybe the whole thing was like a stripping, you know, like of detachment. Like Simona was saying, maybe as an apostolate, we've kind of had to have been stripped a little bit from that feeling of this diocese is mine or this parish is mine. And really, you know, this, Dora, I love you said it this morning, this is the Lord's work. Now, this is the Lord's work. So I'm a link in the chain. I have my role. I have my gifts. I have the things that I can do, but I can't do what Don Walter can do. And I can't do what Wendy Mass can do. And I can't do what Shell Connor can do. I mean, and I think, Brian, it would be great as we're unveiling.
Do it. Well, but you mean not right, good, better, great. I mean,
Even if you are great at 2 things, let's say, that are 2 distinct roles, what a team can do is so much more. You know, I was thinking right when I woke up yesterday that the total is so much more than the sum of the parts.
Well, right, and I mean, I can do some of those. I don't mean I can't, but
You're very talented.
What should I be doing, right? What should I be doing? So, yeah, maybe I could fumble my way through a presentation. Maybe I could, you know, do something, but what our role, what's our seat on the bus, you know? Which seat are we in? We're all on the bus. Let's go forward.
There was a couple of questions or comments back there, yes. We're going to show you pictures today, aren't we?
can they call? Well, there are a couple pictures in your packet. Let's go to that page.
Oh, yeah.
There are, just so for now, but tomorrow, I don't know. I was thinking, can I zoom in? You know, at some point and just say hello.
Yeah.
You're in for the shock of your life.
Yeah.
I can't wait to know. You know.
Yeah, absolutely, we can do that, and we recognize that that's an important part, you know, and even seeing each other, not only hearing each other, is really good.
And two, just the philosophy behind that, it was a protective thing, like 1812, 1813, but it was a protective thing. It was genuinely designed as something that we thought would, you know.
Do you remember yesterday when I told you that I was typing an email and I just needed a few more minutes to get it proofread and finished?
The intent was not to shroud them in mystery. The intent was to let them not be seen as, you know, one person that was
changing,
you know,
the
trying to
whole
do
vision.
yeah.
Something that they've been searching for.
Where
I think I'm going to get the job, but it's like, I got an email from a parish consultant last night that had this, and it all came together, and
I think it was a misstep
she
in some
cited
ways.
this specific example, and I know exactly what example she's talking about. Yay, girl! So thank you for letting me do it.
So yeah,
Your part, you got
look at, right? I mean,
Always forward.
always forward. And the thing is,
I was just blown away. I'm like, are you kidding me?
not much. What we're really is idolize.
I'll let you listen to it. There's a meeting in New York that I could have gone to, but I, don't have the money because I'd rather travel.
That's what we do.
But it's a regional meeting, and here it is.
I've been meeting with
I got this email from this parish consultant, and blah, 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 blah. She has 7 paragraphs of things. And anyway.
I'd rather have something, and you know, okay. And Erica had was going to mass that day, and you know, whatever. But it's pretty much, you know, like that's expected. But of course, things come up, but you want to be there. It's your team, right? It's your team meeting. So every morning I've seen Brian, and he walked in the door, and I was like, hey, Brian, I haven't seen you like in person to hug you in a year. I don't know, but I was like, hey, Brian, now someone's like, oh my gosh, you're here, like, why? Like, that was how close I feel. I see him every single day. Okay, so this is the thing. You get on with your team. Pretty soon it's going to be Ida and her PCs and Wendy has to drive every morning. They are your team now. It's not you get to meet them once. No, right? Maybe.
Well, maybe those two, maybe someone else.
Oh, right. As an example.
Those roles.
But
Those
then
roles.
Brian's team maybe could have who? We don't know. But like
It could be any of the SMEs, and there's actually kind of 3 roles in the E-team like that way. So it could be any of them.
Okay.
Could be Kevin Poynton, could be Shell Connor, and Frank Boydett, or.
But they may, right? They could kind of. That would be their team.
Well, yeah, it's not just pick somebody like, oh, who do I need that day in this region for this pilot. It's building actual teams. Yeah, so you'll be in relationship with them, and there's this concept that's really interesting about how you work together on this team. You're going to serve all these different parishes, right? But this team is going to be cohesive. You're going to communicate and be able to say, wow, it's again figuring it out. How do we're gonna in communication, how do you manage a whole diocese full of parishes? Well, we got to see what we have, and we got to prioritize, and then we also have to expand the pie. Like, how many relationships do we have in this 100 parishes? Right now it's probably like 134. We should have 600. And we should be in communication and know them. And they should know you. That's what we want, is we want them to know you. Right? So they know, wow, like you said, the Augustine Institute is here to help us, and they do. And maybe Father knows that really well right now. Maybe he doesn't know it yet, but she does, or he does, and it's going to grow, So.
With our diocese being, there's only like really 2 of us for time. I can empathize with you like for having all 4 of us. That one diocese. And I know the work of not only do you not feel alone, you don't feel like you're competing, but I didn't know who I could talk to. Maybe I'm going outside the box if I talk to Brian or if I talk to Joel, because we're on the same page. And
amazing evangelization in the world. It's not an anymore. That we are represented a team. I mean, and you're not alone anymore because you can get help. You can talk through something and strategize. Great point. Patty, did you have a question?
One of the feedback I've gotten from priests is like, who do I talk? Because there's so many people calling or emails that are going. So it's almost like they're overwhelmed and they're like, I'm done because I don't know who to talk to because there's so many people. So kind of making sure there's not duplication of that.
Well, that's a huge part of why it's so important that the local person in relationship, as local as we can get. Your kids are going to be talking to people that aren't so local sometimes, right? But so that you have that person that can get you to the right person. And in the past, like the independent contractor model, it did serve us incredibly well to get into 7,000 parishes in 151 countries and right? But it's different. It's not just the copier machine anymore, So it's a great point, but to be that person, not to feel like all the pressure, like I have to be everything to this priest, No, it's like, can I, let's think about it. Who can help in this situation?
And I think to illustrate, Patty, I opened up a parish record. Somebody emailed it to me and said, like, oh, by the way, Lisa, I'm sorry to embarrass you for a second. I just wanted to introduce you to the group here, but Lisa's been our fabulous server. It was her birthday yesterday. But somebody emailed me, or I happened to open up a record, and it had, I think, 4 different Augustine Institute people. Like, it looks like 4 arms, right? The analogy. And it wasn't bad. I mean, everybody had a specific thing, and then maybe they've been talking with different people, but there was the secretary who was doing it all, right? And got frustrated. But, right? Like, together. Secretary, 4 different people from the Augustine Institute said, oh, hi, this is Jerry from the Augustine Institute, Susie. You know what I'm saying?
They think they're under assault.
That's exactly
Right.
I think I exactly know what you're saying, because it happens. But how can we change that?
right.
Yeah. So where do we go
Okay.
from here?
All right. Any last questions before we kind of move on to these questions that you guys have, because it kind of turns into the practical. So what is the practical, what's your job, right, when we go home? Well, it's the same in one sense that it's always been, is that you are to be there to serve the parish in whatever need they have. But the 2 main ways that we can serve them, right, is to be a link in the chain, to pick up the phone and start the conversation. We talked about that yesterday. Now, there's lots of approaches to that, and we can come back to that. But today we wanted to talk about the other tool, which is so exciting and fun. Do you guys know what the other tool is? The other thing you're going to be doing a lot of? Discovery, right? How many, just what do you comes to mind with the word discovery, or what you know about it? Or
Christopher Columbus. That's the first thing.
listening, connecting, relationship building, encouraging,
Understanding.
encouraging for the priest, new understanding. But these are, yes. So we thought today, how does this sound? I mean, we've all probably, who has done 1 or 2 discoveries? Okay. Who's done 5 to 10? Raise them high. 5 to 10, okay. Who has done 10 to 20? Okay. This is the beauty of this. How many have you done?
Hundreds.
We have someone who's done hundreds, who's gonna walk us from A to Z. He's gonna role play it out. Would that be helpful to watch that? Okay, and then we'll break it down into 4 parts. The first part, we'll break it down now, and then you can watch the whole thing, and then we'll go back and just look quickly at each of the 4 parts, make sure we got it, and then answer questions. But does that sound useful time spent? Okay. Anything else you need about discovery, or anything you want to make sure we cover? I'm looking at the list.
Let me just clarify with what you're saying about this new model and how we're working together. So it's a little confusing. So is that something you expect, like the parish consultants, to then be able to do the discovery, or is that something that we should be connecting to the EC?
Yes and yes. I mean, we're Catholic. It's both and a lot of times. Depending on the circumstance. Exactly. We're going to talk. Yes, it's a great question. We're going to talk about that. If that's not clear, then I'll try to make it more clear.
Okay, thank you.
And or Julie or Annie can jump in, because sometimes I really don't make it clear. All right. One thing, is it hard to hear? If anybody wants to move their chair, or either come to this table or move their chair up into here. I mean, I got 9 kids. We walk all over each other. You know what I mean? It wouldn't bother me at all. If you can't hear, move your chair up to like right here or whatever. I mean, or we could pull this table in closer. I don't really care, but I want everyone to be able to hear and interact. Because I can talk this loud for another 7 minutes.
Hey, Lisa, is there any chance we could get that microphone there? Maybe you just turn on? So just lay out the four parts of this. I always knew there were parts, like all of a sudden it went off and then you jump in and.
Okay, could we lay the groundwork a little bit first?
Yeah.
We're going to the handout. though,
Yes,
right?
okay, so please pull out the discovery packet. I'm getting a little crazy. The discovery packet is a separate packet in your folder. There you go.
I just want to say a couple things about this first, because of what Sue said. It's a really great point. And when you're thinking about this model, I know it's a little fuzzy right now. It'll be very, very clear. It's actually incredibly simple. But imagine in your role, however you would define it, imagine in the way that you interact with people, the people you're trying to serve. Would it be good to know them much, much, much better? Would it be good to know their personal situation, how they got there, their motivations for the work that they do, how they feel about it, how important they think about it, what their goals are, short, medium, long term? What motivates them? What gets them excited? All those things. Would it be helpful in your role of serving them to know that? That's what discovery is about. And whatever your role is, as we become an organization that is less about push out the products and more about we're your resource, we will help you figure it out, right? It becomes more and more important that God gave us all 2 ears and 1 mouth. He meant for us to do twice as much listening than talking. I know that is hard to believe coming from me today.
So I just want to jump in with one thing that's coming through my mind. Dr. Gray talks a lot about the Augustine Institute is not the new evangelization. We serve the new evangelization. And that's a really big thing, I think, to get in our heads. We are not the savior. We are not, as great as the Augustine Institute is, we are not it. We serve the new evangelization through the graduate school and through our parish-based programs and our helping pastors build missionary disciples. So that could be kind of tying into the elevator speech, that we are here to serve. And so I think that fits in really well with the whole team too, that it's not just like, oh, I got the silver bullet that's going to make your parish and, totally change tomorrow. No, but we're going to get in the trenches with you and help you find what's going to work for you, given your situations, giving Pittsburgh having 5 parishes go to 1, whatever those situations are, we're going to serve.
And to Sue's question, you guys all give that, like, what do I set up the discovery and do it myself, or do I have the SME to do? You guys caught the answer, right? Both and. It's whatever you think is appropriate from what you need and what that person. So if you can do the discovery, fantastic. If you can't,
There's no end to discovery. So let's just say that. There's no end to discovery.
Okay, that's a great point. Discovery,
It's not one and done. It's not like I did it today, done with that, check the box. It's an ongoing.
If you have a doctor, right, first of all, you have a general practitioner probably, right? And hopefully they know you a little bit. If they don't, they will, because you're going to be with that person over years. And sometimes that general practitioner says, super obvious, stop what you're doing. You're going to make an appointment with this person. Here's the specialist. Go do that. No, don't argue with me. Go do that. That's what you need, right? But they ask questions. How's it going? You probably had an initial interview that, like, wow, who is this person? What's their state of life? What's normal for them? You do some tests, all that kind of stuff, right? But they're specialists. There's also people like the physician's assistant. There's also the person at the front desk. There's also an on and on and on. It's a pretty good analogy, yeah. Yeah.
And that's the humility piece. Brian Timber has done discoveries himself. He was on with Joe DiMendi, and he texted me. He's like, "We're still on. We're still going." And he got off and he said, "Wow, I learned. I'm gonna do discovery so much better from being on that call." But what Brian said, it's not a one time. We've been teaching it as one of 4 steps. Let's get rid of that. A discovery is every person you meet.
Let's get into it.
Okay, you do this for me first. Do a discovery on Tom as an account manager, or I'm sorry, Rob.
Tom's behind you.
Rob, I'm sorry. Do a discovery on Rob. Right now, personal discovery, if you would, because we talked about this, right? Like
no. Didn't talk about this at all.
Okay. You can do a discovery with anyone. You could do a discovery to get to know someone in their role.
Yeah, it's a great point. Like, think of this, for whoever we interact with at the parish, they're a person that is providing some value there or seeking to. We want to understand, gosh, what's your role here? I mean, don't you love the person that does that? You know who does that? I've seen these guys do that, like, just naturally. Like, even with whoever, like, even around here, like, people that, made your bed today. You know what I mean? It's every person. So, okay. So, can you be Father Rob?
Well, how about that?
Sure. Okay. All right. So this will be right. So this is not the discovery exactly itself, but it's the same principles. Okay. But I think we need to do it in the right context. But like, just as any, you can do this with anyone. So I'll just do it first, and then we'll talk about it. Okay. So Rob, great to meet you. And thanks for carving out the time, for you and I to talk. Great, because I feel like I'm running like on a treadmill lately, But yeah, so we have a little bit. How much time do you have? 40 minutes. Oh, fantastic. We might not use it all. We might want to go even further, but we'll just see how it goes, if that's all right. So let me ask Rob, what's your role here with the Augustine Institute? You're a PC, and that's parish consultant. Okay. And how long have you been in this role? 8 years. Okay. Can I ask, what did you do before that? Were you still with the Augustine Institute, or were you somewhere else? So you were part of Lighthouse Catholic.
Can you sit there so they can see your voice or your mouth?
Yeah, or if you want to stand, I'll
I'm not shy.
So she's the mother of 5. So there you go. So 8 years, and so yeah, that makes sense. You're part of Lighthouse Catholic Media, right? And did you ever work in and around the church before that?
Baseball is a ministry, but
so your primary vocation is, what's your primary? Are you husband, father, single life? Okay.
Husband, father.
Okay. Okay, so that's your primary vocation, but you've been working with Lighthouse Catholic Media for 8 years now, the Augustine Institute.
Right.
Do you work hard at it?
Not really.
Not really? Okay. So does it just fit in where, like, tell me about that. How many kids do you have?
4.
4 kids? You're one of those. Okay. As soon as you have 4, they look at you really funny.
Why?
Right. So, 4 kids. I mean, life's pretty busy, right, for most of us.
Right.
Rob, can I ask you, why did you ever decide to spend time working? Okay, how did you first become aware of Lighthouse Catholic?
Sue Benzie.
Who's Sue Benzie?
Sue Benzie is the PC. She was the PC for my parish. And I literally just went to the back of church. And usually I used to go out the side door. I went to the back of church. There was a tabletop stand. And Claire and I picked up 3 or 4 of them and played them on our way home. And that's just the beginning of the story. That's how it went.
You listened to 3 or 4 of these.
Right, and then we did it next week too, and then I called up and got a phone call from Sue.
Do you remember what the first one was?
First.
It's one of the 3. Give me one of the 3 that had an impact. Do you even remember?
No.
There's been so many.
All I know is when the CD in the car, the kids are
Going
crying. They
on-
had to listen, right?
What was going on either in your mind or your heart or something? Because I can sense that this was like a fire that was, I don't know, it's like wood on the fire, it sounds like. What happened?
Right.
Have you always been an on-fire Catholic, by the way?
Yeah, mostly. I mean, there's been ups and downs, but yes.
Something happened when you listened to these talks. What was going on?
Probably confirmation. Probably all everything that I believed was being affirmed by our talks. And that's what brought me in.
And they were putting words to it.
Right.
In a
Right.
story.
Right.
And everyone, that's interesting.
And that it wasn't only me. That you know, like I said, it's an affirmation. It's gave membership.
Yeah, so it's like the expression of being part of something bigger.
Right.
And you said the kids were proud. Was your wife in the car?
Yes.
Did she listen?
Yes.
Did she feel the same way, differently?
Yeah, she did. In fact, just this year, she became an emissary.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to jump in here because we want to,
Yeah.
we kind of want to transition this over to what the discovery is at the parish. But what's happening here with these two is they're talking.
You're making genuine contact.
We have a little bit of a relationship already, and I know some things about him that most people have never heard, even people he knows well, right?
Right.
And how is Brian doing that? What's the biggest thing you saw or observed Brian? How did he do that?
For me, it's
Eye contact?
That's good. I mean, not just the words, but the eye contact.
So happy about that. My wife says I'm terrible at that. So
He sort of rephrased what he heard Rob saying and put words
Right.
to Rob.
Behind it.
Is that what you were doing?
You do that very well, by the way.
And Rob would go, yeah.
Yeah. Questions.
Yes.
Yeah. So how many times have I called somebody up and said, Father, I'm just going to tell you something new. I really want to tell you about this the other thing, and it's really going to help you, and blah, 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 blah. And we kind of jokingly say that's like throwing up on them. Throw up and throw up. And in some ways, that hasn't been completely ineffective. But how is that different from what you saw here? And one of the things, it's interactive, it's asking questions, but Brian, of course, has this really a gift, but it's a teachable gift. And what we just saw here, we can do in our own way with our own spirit.
there's
Jen?
2 questions over here. Genuinely interested, yeah.
So many people that are involved in the church. First of all, you know you're not getting money. You're not there for the money. Okay? And the second thing is, most of the time when you're doing something, like when I was coaching, nobody even knew who I was or what I did. Okay? By making the contact that he's doing, you're bringing the person into their role and, I don't know, announcing it or
How do you
making
feel
it
about
public.
How do you feel about our discussion? Like, what's going on in your mind, in your heart, as we're talking? Even though you know this is like a setup, right?
Right.
But it's also real, right?
Oh, yeah,
Because this is
absolutely.
real. So that was really a good way. How do you feel towards me right now? How do you feel about our conversation? How do you feel about where it's going? Like, any thoughts that you have?
Well, anytime that somebody digs into your person, you have a tendency, first of all, like show up and throw up, people are going to go this. Okay? When somebody's sincere and they want to know who you are and what you do, you have a tendency to do this. Okay? Open yourself up.
Give him a text. I'm going to take him upstairs. Give it to him. Thank you.
That's valuable.
And that's not rare. That's the norm. It's a long time ago I learned this model is from the history of Northwestern Mutual. And I heard a guy say one time, he was one of their leaders, he said, people, it was small business owners, and the people you're going to meet with, they don't have someone to talk to. Like they have their own peers, and they have the Rotary Club or all these different things, but that's not the same thing. Like they don't have a trusted advisor. They don't have someone that they can even share their plans, their hopes, their concerns, because some people are a competitor. Even if they're in the same job, even if they're in the same company, they're not competing. They're kind of a competitor. So just be there for them. So whoever you're interacting with, you might not be in full discovery mode, but one, be there for them, like you all do anyway, probably. But when you do get in that discovery mode, you know, it's key for anyone in the process. And you said it exactly right. You know that it's working when someone says, "Wow," it's like that. Or they might not say it. I tell the team all the time, you know, they're going to tell you things that they maybe have never told anyone in their entire life. And it's about one of the things that's most important.
Go, Lily, Cat.
Yeah. How did you get to know him? I mean, you have relationship, right? You brought over, you have dinner, before dinner, during, after, you're having this same conversation. It's less formal. It's the same conversation.
What? Jakey.
They never get sick of it, do they?
Yeah, on my leg. Jakey, no bite. No bite.
Do you have something that you would love to share with someone anytime that they ask, but no one ever asks you? That's what Teresa's saying. And because as the pastor, it's like, okay, I can't overuse this. Kind of like talking about money. They do it once a year.
I know.
It's kind of like your story. Like I don't want to bore people with my story. It's also very, very special and sacred to them. So they don't want to see pearls before swine.
Okay, Jakey, I'm glad. Well, where did that needle come from in there?
Oh,
Needle.
People are coming.
People
are coming at them. They either want something from them or they're going to compete. Do it. Don't even say it. Do it and let them know you did. Great one. Thank you.
She said 2 things.
You're the star.
So the youth minister said 2 things to me. She said, those questions were excellent. And she also said, you know, I haven't had a chance to sit down with Father to know what his vision is, and he doesn't really know what I do, so I asked both of them, and she thought that was invaluable.
This is so important. I can't even tell you. I can't tell you how many times I'm thinking of Shell Connor right now. Sure. Dora, thank you so much for bringing that up. That is so. And I hope. Did I cut you off? Okay, because that was incredible. Because
If you're gonna do a discovery, don't do it with like 5 or 6 people in the room. That is not good.
that's right. That's a great point. It really doesn't work the same way. It's a totally different thing. You might ask, you might kind of like a round table. That's very effective, but it's not the same thing. Discovery is a very intimate kind of thing, right? But Shell Connor had this person on, and she said, and we do the same thing on the evangelization support team that we're talking about, like our teams will do, right? We switch roles sometimes. Like Shell will, and we do ongoing training. So even the SMEs, they'll be like, okay, get on this call with me sometime. They don't do it as much anymore. But they'll be like, hey, I've got the situation. And so they'll be the PC or the account manager, and I'll be the SME, for example. And so we get on, and this woman was very defensive. And by the end of a discovery meeting, she was so much less so. And Shell and I talked afterwards. We weren't sure it was going to go. The next week, though, she followed up in the way that Shell had laid out for her. Okay. And Shell said, I want you to get back on with us. So we did more discovery. And you might think, oh my gosh, who has all this time? That was 1 hour, 2 hours. Now we were on together with her. 3rd hour. I'm not suggesting this for everybody, but you know how you have time budgets? Well, Annie and Julie and Mark, Julie and Mark talk about time budgets so that you have the amount of time, but some of them aren't going to use as much. Some of them are going to need more. That's what you got to figure out, right? So anyway, this woman that Phil and I had on in the discovery, the next step, I said, you know, we really need to talk with your pastor. Could we? And you could tell she's like, no, I don't want you to talk to my pastor. And so it's like, together with you. Okay, because that was the only way this was going to go. We got on with the pastor, and it was a really, really great, it basically turned into pretty much discovery with the pastor. And then it morphed into this thing where it was a 4-way conversation. At the end of it, she called us back, and she cried. And she said, this is such a breakthrough for my pastor and I, because they've never done this together. So Dora, it's such a great point. They've never done it together. She works for the pastor. She's got her own ideas. She doesn't know how to accept them. She doesn't really know what motivates him. What's important in his position? Is she on track? Are they doing something together? Is it, etc. No, don't sit down there. Okay, so really, really great point. You gotta have the mic.
These people.
No, he's not. Come on, let's take
What it was. I do it as often as I can. Like when I went up to a lady's good health, I just happened to be in the gift shop, and the priest was there blessing items. So I said to him, could you tell me your story? What was it? And after about 15 minutes, telling me about points in his life that changed his direction, wherever he was going, and how he ended up. He was from Nebraska, and he was working up in Wisconsin. Okay, there's stories there. And
holding close to your mouth.
I'm not a quiet man. I don't know if you know.
They can't hear in the back.
All right.
Yeah, sure. So, well, I just wanted with Rob, I wanted to just kind of turn the corner on where we were. So we were talking about Rob, and this will be apparent when we go through kind of the specific example of how we really do discovery. But it's analogous, right? So at a certain point, you've already shared with me how you got started with Lighthouse, why it's important to you. I might ask, what has the fruit of it been? Like, what is it? You said the kids were captive, right? Like, what do they think? Do you think they're more plugged in? Do they understand better? Whatever.
There's no question.
Yeah, we could keep going with this conversation, right? But at a certain point, you might say, depending on what the reason for our conversation is, maybe it should take on a new life of its own, this relationship we have. So, Rob, I'd really love, you mentioned chimpanzee, I'd really love to introduce you to somebody. I'd love to introduce you to somebody that's on my team. His name's Don Walter. And you have a lot in common, but I think it would be a wonderful, I've loved every minute with you, but I'd love to make this more kind of a 3D conversation, and we'll see where it goes from there, if that's okay with you. Because I think I sense the Lord saying something, there's some work that we can do together. Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so now we've transitioned. Thank you so much, Rob. That's great. So now we've transitioned to the, thank you. Now we've transitioned, to what's the next phase? Like, what's the work we have to do? Where are we supposed to go from here? Right? So do we want to do the actual discovery? All right, so I just want to walk through kind of the methodology real quick. And this is where Annie said this is very, very teachable. It's really true. And just one point on the value of the team. It's so powerful, I can't even tell you. When my last full year at CompuWare, I was in the software world and in sales, and they announced this big change. And the big change was change in product lines a little bit, like kind of a realignment. And it was also how the inside and outside people were going to work in the same, like with overlapping territories. And everybody said, this is horrible. Like, these people are in my business. You know, like, it was competitive. Where? Okay. It was competitive, you know, and people really hated it. They hated this idea. And I'm like, well, I think this sounds fantastic. So there were 5 other people in my territory that were inside salespeople or appointment setter, that kind of thing. Mostly they had their own product lines, but they did the smaller deals. And the outside people hated it because they're like, they get in there, they have the conversation, steal my thunder, and then it doesn't go anywhere. And then vice versa, the inside people were like, no, they just want to sell the huge deal, blah, 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 right? So we had these little discovery meetings with those 5 people in my region. And there was a guy down in Texas, we were good friends, and we always competed. And so he did the same thing. Everyone else in the country didn't do it that way. They stayed in their own little, this is mine, and I'm not going to share information. I want everyone out, right? This is mine. This is my little thing. I'm going to do it. We said, no, let's see what we could do together. His whole team, which was about 12 people, and my whole team ended up not only at club, like they all made 100% of their number, which was not a common thing. About 10% of people in the company made their number, but the whole teams did. In the other example, it was like one-offs, you know? So we're there in Hawaii, which is really cool because, like, you know, Peggy and I would always want to go there. So they're announcing like what people were as a percentage of quota. And by the way, this is how the Lord works. We were praying the Chaplet of Divine Mercy every day. And it was amazing the doors he opened up. So, and no one else was doing that, I can assure you. So they go through, you have to be 100% quota to be there, right? 100, 120, someone had 140% of quota, and everyone goes, ooh, 140 something. My friend down in Texas, their team was 256% of quota. We talk about the quantum leap a lot. Our team was 411% of quota. So in the entire organization, as a team, we were able to do 4 times what the most successful other people were able to do, you know? So that's where we're going. I feel like it's the quantum leap of the quantum leap. I feel like the Lord's just saying, all right, now you know what you've been through. Now we're going to all work together and blow the doors off. So I'm so excited.
I've been thinking of, I don't know whether it was Tim Gray or Mark that said this, but I know one of the things that always frustrated me with Lighthouse is like, I just think that I had my stuff together and know what I was doing, and then they would make a change or they would do something new and we'd have no, you know, we'd now be launching this. I was constantly, oh my gosh, really? And the thing is, then they did that, it was never like completely organized, you know, like there were always, right, exactly. And I started to realize that that's that entrepreneurial spirit, that's what they do. And I think it's that they said if they had waited to launch Formed till you had all the ducks in a row, well, you might have had a competitor or something like that. And I just valued this. Yeah.
And we never would have had Lou Reynolds, because the only reason we got Lou Reynolds was because his parish got formed. And it was so crappy. He came to, well, he did the consecration. You guys know this story?
Yeah.
He did the who doesn't? Anybody? Okay, he did the consecration. He made the consecration at his parish, unrelated to Formed, right? Or maybe it was, I don't know. But anyway, he made the consecration, and of course.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Which was life-changing for him, just the CD.
His parish got the Set All Afire CD years ago. That was our $1 special. He listened. He went through the consecration, gave his life to Jesus through Mary. Of course, Mary stepped in, and pretty soon he finds himself signing up for a graduate class or a class at the Augusta Institute. His wife had passed away, I believe, at that point recently, and he was retired. And he started going to the AI, and gets to know Dr. Tim Gray and says, I gotta tell you, this form thing, we love it, but it's like really messed up. Like, you got a lot of issues. Like, he's a tech guy. He had built and sold businesses, like tech businesses. And so I'm probably getting some of this wrong, but the general idea is that Dr. Tim Gray and the Dr. Tim Gray way said, why don't you help us? And he said, okay, I will work for free for 3 years. You have my commitment for free.
Plus, he wouldn't want us to say this, but he did make a financial contribution as well. So
we
think that's the word for
yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. So the 4 parts, right? So one is, so we're switching, we're building a plan in the air. So now the approach, we're going to call the phone approach, right? And
sorry.
Okay, you just tell me which one you want to do.
I'm so sorry. Just one thing. This first page is like data for you to fill out before you go. This is your homework. And this is what Mark has built in time for you to do. He gave us 3 priorities the other day. Number 1.
Know who's in every one of your parishes. Sit on the same spirit of the 6 star. Like, know this parish. Know these people. That's why you have a set number of customers. So you can really, really know them and build out a profile of that parish.
And could that take an hour, 2 hours, 5 hours? Of course. We could look at the website all day long. Should we? No. We should look at the website. We should look at the user notes. We should add and update the 6 stars. And hopefully that will take about 15 minutes. Let's try for that, right? I mean, whatever. We can't spend an hour. That's the point. It's not good use of our time. It's good use to some degree, but then, okay.
Okay, so let's just say you can't make a full-time job out of just profiling parishes, right? I mean, we have to get to the other parts too. So you're going to have a hierarchy probably of your team's going to figure out, these are the ones that, gosh, this is the most significant parish in our whole diocese. We need to spend a lot more time with different people here. It's going to look different. So
okay, great. So then turn the page. That's done. We walk in. We are prepared. We kind of get a sense of this parish, and we are ready for the second step, which is gaining agreement, which Brian's going to talk about. But we don't bust in there and just say, yeah, we're here. We're going to start talking. There's a special art to this that Brian's going to go through in just a second. That's the second step. The third, so you're gaining agreement. You're kind of asking permission in a special way. Not, okay, this is where it's hard. We don't make this up. This is hundreds of parishes. This is what you say on this page. We're going to go through it. That's the second step. The third step, the intro conversation. Now that he said yes, we're going to do something. We're going to start to ask not the discovery questions necessarily. We're going to start with some personal questions. Get to know person and their role, kind of what Rob did for us. That's step number 1, 2, 3, right? Step 4 is the triangle. We're going to talk about that, but we need to understand the universal church today. And then step 5 is now what? The close. The way you pull it all together and connect them with the people they need to talk to. So what's the first step? Profiling. Second step, gaining agreement. Third step, intro conversation. Fourth step, triangle. Fifth step, the close. See? To me, I didn't really get it before. I get it now. It's 5 steps. Simple? Kind of.
it's actually very, very simple. Yep. Only a teacher can make it sound simple like that. All right, so should we dive in and do it? Okay, so let's just talk about let's just talk about the first step. This is like the discovery approach. It's kind of the front porch, right? So you ever notice when you get to someone, and this could be on the phone or in person. Yeah, gaining agreement. You're going to have some small talk if you're there in person, right? If you're on the phone and you've scheduled this time for discovery already from the phone approach, father or whoever is probably thinking, I'm not sure, what are we talking about again? I'm not sure, right? They're not quite positive. They might have an idea of exactly what they want to talk about. That's okay. But we want to gain agreement to do this discovery. Remember, we told them, what did we tell them are 2 reasons for wanting to meet them? What is it, Ida? Want to shake your hand, tell you a little bit about the work that I do. Okay? So, Father, after the small talk, Father, do you remember I had said, and thank you so much for carving out a little time on your schedule for us today. By the way, I have some time here. How much time do you have? Do you have a hard stop at a certain time, like the bottom of the hour or the top of the hour? Like they say, oh, I got about, they might say I have 15 minutes, no problem. They might say I have an hour, no problem. They might say, yeah, sure. Yep.
I have about 15 minutes.
No problem. All right. So that just is like a reset in like for you just know where to go from there, right? So I'd say no problem. So it's still a good time to do that for 15 minutes. Fantastic. Okay. So Annie, to give you an idea of the work that I do, I work in 3 steps. It's pretty simple. 1, I ask a lot of questions. My goal is always to really understand you, your ministry, what's important to you, and what you're trying to accomplish, right? I have a form that I keep track on. Can you hear okay? I have a form that I keep track on, so I don't forget. Second step is to review and analyze what we talked about, the things that you said were important. And third, it's a little subtle. The third is to make recommendations for you to consider. And really, if it's a pastor, I'm saying, these are things that you can keep it just that simple, to make recommendations. And by the way, as the shepherd, you're the only one that knows if this is, what things are going to be appropriate and timing and all that kind of stuff. But my role is to review and analyze what we talked about and to make recommendations. And then it should be pretty obvious where to go from there. It'll be obvious to you, where you'd like to go. But does that process make sense? Does it make sense to you all?
Okay, let's
Let me just say this. Exactly those words. Like you can do it super fast. Rob, I work at 3. Here's the work I do. I work at 3 steps. 1 is to ask questions and really try to understand. Whenever I meet with a pastor or a Lighthouse Catholic Media representative or whatever, my goal is to understand you, what's important to you, what you're trying to accomplish, things like that. Second step is to review and analyze what we talk about. And the third is just to make observations, recommendations based on our experience, things for you to consider. Does that process make sense? Is anyone ever going to say that process does not make sense? Almost never. They might, once out of 100, they might kind of veer off and say, well, but I'm almost never. They might say begrudgingly, well, yes, that makes sense. Like, well, of course it makes sense. Like, what was the date of your ordination? Or if it's the DRE or someone, it's like, okay, so your title and responsibility, you're the director of religious education. What's your responsibility? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Okay.
Somebody have a question on that. This person is
that form comes out. This parts of the form. See, this has been cleaned up a lot. Thank heaven. So yeah, Julie and crew like laid it out into an actual document. But yes, you have to have some way to record what they're saying. Yeah, if you're there with you, if you're right there with them, you could type it in, or you could write it out. Yeah.
So everybody has this page. See where it says part 1? Okay, pull that out. And it's a really funny exercise. We did it in Denver. And at the training, and you know what happened? We said, go ahead and read Father. Basically, we work in 3 steps. Read it to the person next to you if you're not really that comfortable yet. It was hilarious. People thought they were reading it, and they totally made up something different.
This is not the time to ad lib.
And
Really.
everyone at the table was like, that was so nice, but that was not the words. And we coached him, and he's like, really? I thought I was like, no, you weren't. And we helped him. Like, it was not good. The direction, the walk. So let's turn to each other.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Okay, right now, just read it to someone next to you, and then switch. And if you need 3 people in a group, go ahead and do it.
Yeah. So like you're talking to us.
Okay. Oh, one more minute.
Keep referring to the notes, until it gets. It's really nice to meet you guys.
One more minute.
Pleasure to thank you so much. As we were on the phone, I wanted to give an idea of what I do. I always my mom's working. Basically, I go over the first is to understand the industry. I ask some questions, and I have a form where to help out my and the second is to listen and to consider what you're sharing and discern the areas you want to vision. And the third is to then share recommendations things that you share. This process.
Okay, so let's get back together. We'll just do a little feedback and then we'll take a break. And then when we get back together, we'll do the next couple steps of the discovery. And then what we'd like to do, Father Major at St. Mary's Parish, just a little walk away, he's offered to come early for confession, which is beautiful. We have opportunity for confession today and also tomorrow at the Fatima Shrine. They also offer confession every day. So today, he's there starting at 11:30. Mass is at 12:10. Okay, so we will probably wrap up here about 11:30, but if we can have a few people go over to be there for confession at 11:30, and then we'll kind of trickle in the rest of us. But is there anybody willing to go? I hate to ask like who wants to go to confession, but is there anybody that anyone need confession? That's a great way. Is there anyone willing to go first? Yeah, maybe Christy and Teresa and Bernadette. Okay, and Patty, if you guys could go and plan to be there at 11:30, so just kind of watch the time and scooch out at, it takes it's 7 minutes according to the GPS. So just walk out the door, go left, and the first road you take a right. You remember? Yeah, and it's down by the casino. Right next to the casino, actually.
If you're going to the casino, go first and then go to
This is all set up to see who goes tomorrow. No, I'm just kidding. So then we'll all, the rest of us will go over, we'll have mass at 12:10. We'll have the rosary after that. And then we'll come back here for lunch. And lunch will be here buffet style again. Does that sound okay? Any questions on any of that? Yeah, you can leave our things here. We'll lock the door. Okay, so let's just, any feedback from your table of doing that first part? Christy, did you have feedback? Oh, hold on.
I think one thing that I see a lot is going into staffs, and there's a lot of dysfunction within the staffs, and they're not speaking. It's kind of like an island here and an island there. This is awesome. What a great communication tool. I haven't seen this yet.
For her to say this, Chris, I'm like, that's a bad moment, because Christy's like she was a parish consultant, and then she totally had an epiphany at a conference in Mundelein. I mean, like, well, you have to ask her, and now she's the most amazing emissary, but she's found some place, right?
But it's the staffs that drove it, because I had in my heart, I've worked customer service my whole life, but the staff piece, everywhere you go, I keep thinking if people were living their faith, there'd be saints everywhere. And there's so many, it's so disheartening when you're going into parishes and they're not communicating, they're not talking, everybody's stressed out. And what you said is so true. Like, I can see that the youth minister, the pastor doesn't even know who they are, and they're doing all these awesome things. And we had the best director of evangelization ever in our parish, and some of the priests didn't even know what they did. And it's just, this is awesome. I just see like this being a ripple effect, like that stone. And did you know yesterday was a feast of Our Lady of Maternity? It was, and that was part of my dream last night, was giving birth. No. And today is Christopher Columbus' discovery of here, October 12th. This is off the charts. I keep thinking, I just feel so much fire with you three this morning. It's out of control. Like, that was the only thing. Yeah, that was the only thing. But then today is Our Lady of the Pillar, which has to do with Christopher Columbus and the three, like the Nina, and it's like a foreshadowing of Our Lady of Guadalupe too. So Our Lady's all over this weekend. But this is not just for you guys. This is going to end up really helping parishes, because that's always my heart. It makes me hot just thinking about it.
This is, does that sound weird? Yeah, so Christy, that's so amazing. Well, I gotta add one more. It's also the Feast of Our Lady of Aparecida. Julie had to step out for a minute, but Aparecida is the most foundational, incredible document of the church that has meant the most to me, and it's why I went from the software industry to full-time, is because of what happened at Aparecida. So that'll kind of come into play a little bit more later. But Christy, what you said, there's, yes?
Oh, yeah, we got formed just over a year ago, and when he made the announcement in the parish, he said that it was like Netflix and Amazon Prime got together and had a Catholic baby.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Yes. A-P-A-R-E-C-I-D-A. A-P-A-R-E-C-I-D-A, Spanish word. Yeah, I'd love if we have time, maybe later or even after hours. It's incredibly foundational. If you want to understand, actually, a lot of confusion about Pope Francis. So Pope Francis, when he was Cardinal Bergoglio, Pope Benedict called a synod for all of the bishops for South and Central America and the Caribbean. And it was a synod, so it was an ongoing series of meetings and things like that. And the bishops at the end of it had to elect which bishop would pull together all the summary documents. Like, let's capture the heart of what happened here. And it was Aparecidas, Our Lady of Aparecida. Something amazing happened there. Whole story, it has to do with the Immaculate Conception. So who was elected by all of his fellow bishops to pull together those summary documents? Cardinal Bergoglio, who would then, shortly after, be elected as Pope. It's not a coincidence. I mean, it's how the Holy Spirit's working. And it's tied very similar concepts to Ecclesia in America. But anyway, we'll talk about that later. But what Christy was talking about, who's ever heard of the Amazing Parish? Who's ever heard of Patrick Lencioni? Okay, so those two things are kind of one and the same in a sense. Patrick Lencioni started that. There's a number of other consulting organizations. You're going to see them come up more and more and more. Of how do we solve these problems in the church? What Christy just said is so foundational to the answer. What does Amazing Parish do? Well, they get people to come to listen, with their pastor or whatever. But people go back to their parish and say, what do we really do? They read books like Forming Intentional Disciples and things like that, and they say, yeah, this is so good, so important. But what do we really do? But what's the key to unlocking the power of Patrick Lencioni's vision for how to build a cohesive team and how to work effectively? It's relationship. It's exactly what Christy said. This is it. Instantly in her brain, that's how the Holy Spirit works, I think, is that she's like, this is it. Well, it is, but who would ever know? Thousands of parishes will never know unless someone is in a relationship and truly understands them and could be in position to make a recommendation. Because they're thinking, there's all these things. There's the Augustine Institute, the Amazing Parish, Dynamic Catholic, Ascension Press, all these different things, and hundreds of things within each one. They don't know what to do. So the key is to be in relationship with people that are committed, and an organization committed to helping them with what to do, and to put things in the right order, to prioritize. So great insight. Yes, Mark.
Yeah, I am so excited about what we just because we're ahead of the curve in the church too. And just with what's happening in Pittsburgh, with all the clustering, no one wants to understand the new administrator, people are working for it. So it's going to be healing there. And just with the Strandiuri report, which is just the tip of the iceberg, this is going to be healing for the priest and healing for the entire family.
Absolutely. We need healing, and we're going to bring it. So thank you for that point. That's a great way to pause and take a break and get some water and coffee, go in the restroom, and then we'll come back and we'll finish up the discovery.
I was thinking that because I do a lot of trainings, and when I'm training my staff, I always start my meetings saying, hey, look, if you need to go to the bathroom, like do this or stop me, because I will keep going. I get on a roll and I forget it's like 2 hours that I haven't been working it, most of the time. So I just thought, I was thinking, it's good to know somebody else is doing it. Okay, you get so excited and it's neat. I find that I some people just break and stuff like that. I go, maybe Andy's like me. But the other thing to this baby after you get birth, you get to newborn, and that's where we are. We've got to get to know this newborn. Oh, yeah. my job in 2002, and then I did my house on this time, but I don't have a resume. I can make one up. That would be helpful.
I went to Jim's and Mark, and
Charlie.
Yes.
Hi. I'm trying to figure out a way to hear you.
You should be able to hear me now.
Can you speak again, Charlie?
Yes. Testing 1, 2, 3. Can you hear
Okay,
me?
I can't hear you, so I'm trying to figure this out and fix it. If you would help me and test it out for a second.
Okay.
Yeah,
Testing.
and it says it's up. It was
Testing.
working yesterday. Give it a try, Charlie.
Testing. 1, 2,
That's
3.
not working. I cannot hear you at all. Try it again.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Let me just. So I'm not
We've
muted
had
on.
trouble with this all morning, and I don't know why.
So I'm not muted on my side. But
what happened when I talked to her and what happened?
Try again, Charlie.
testing 1, 2, 3.
Nor. Hold on.
Hey, Charlie, it's Julie Musselman.
Hi,
Yeah.
Julie.
I called in on my phone. I came up to my room and called in on Zoom, so I can hear you
Okay.
loud and clear.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Well, if we break
So
here,
it must be something on Annie's computer, and when I get back down there, I'll try to help her troubleshoot it.
Okay,
You don't
great.
have to get it now. Good thinking. Thank you. I can't seem to figure this out. The only thing I can think
We're
to
going
do.
to go
Oh,
to.
Charlie, why don't you call me if
That's
you need to?
exactly what I was going to do.
So there's going to be much.
Here we go.
Hi. I'm having such a hard time. Yesterday it worked great, and now we can't hear the audio.
Yeah, and Julie has called me. She signed in from her room on the phone, and she could hear me talking to you. So she's going to come down in a little bit and see if she can figure it out, or help you out anyway.
Yeah, we were looking at this earlier.
Now the people on this end can hear each other because there were a couple of situations where a person wasn't muted and we could hear them. So
I'm just so frustrated.
that part.
Charlie,
that
ask
this
Annie
isn't
if
working.
she just needs to turn her volume up.
Anyway, I'm really enjoying this. I'm grateful that you're doing this, and love listening to your brother. He's just a great wordsmith.
He is, isn't he?
Yep.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Let me test this.
Okay.
Oh, I think I fixed it.
All right, let me put the headset back on.
Oh, Charlie, speak. I think I can hear you.
Okay, well, wait a minute. Let me mute my phone so we make sure we're not,
Annie, I'm on the Zoom on my phone. Can you hear me?
Yes, Julie. Julie,
Great.
can you speak
Then
again?
Yeah, I called in on the Zoom, and I'm talking through the Zoom.
Awesome. Okay, so I was able to put the
Working now.
microphone. Charlie, I can't hear you now, though, but I could hear Julie.
all right, can you hear me now? No?
I can hear you, Charlie.
This is frustrating, isn't it?
Okay, we got it to work.
Okay.
And I'm so thankful because that way we're gonna have someone Skype in later. So this is work. That's super helpful. So who else is on? Dan Shaw, is that you? Oops. Or not Dan Shaw. Dan Smith.
Yes, I'm here.
Is that you, Dan? Hey, Dan.
And Jennifer was on earlier.
Okay. Dan. That's good. You're here. All right, we're gonna get going again, so stay tuned. Glad you guys are joining us.
Okay. I'm going to mute myself again
Okay, that'd be great.
because the kids are still here.
Okay, no problem. I think they're.
Annie?
I can hear you, Charlie.
Okay. As I was saying to Annie, sometimes when people sign on, they don't mute themselves. So those of us who are not in the meeting can hear all this background noise. So maybe the best solution is if that happens again, that Annie, I would text you and ask you to mute people from your side.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, I don't think she heard
And
me.
if
Anyway.
anyone is, I can't see who's on, but if anyone's on and you're remote, please mute.
He's 5'6", I'm just 6. So, and I was like, how come did you get anything from him? And I said, no. And I was looking up at the, whatever. And I was like, how many actually could you have me as? No.
At least one of you got it.
Well, he'll say to me, oh, great.
Everything you did in such a short distance.
What's that? Really?
Everything that you did in such a short time.
A short time. What you got to get together.
I'm not telling you, I'm like, Lord, I cannot do this. This is impossible. I'm just gonna have to, you're gonna have to do this. I really totally had to surrender because there was no way it would come together. And he did. It took me 12 years to learn.
What? When you do it,
Impossible just takes a little longer.
yeah, but when you're doing good, it always works out well. Always.
I'm gonna get a drink.
Okay.
Yeah.
This, so you sit down with father and you do this, like 2 second piece. This is so much different for me. You can sit down, it's like, now we can talk. You just feel like you're not sitting here watching me like, I got this, and this. We can just have a conversation.
It's easy to get excited about what it is you're presenting.
Yeah.
But you know what? People come to temple all the time trying to present that stuff.
Yeah. I don't see that the last time we were just doing the outreach calls for the subject matter experts. Refer to this forum, like we have these great experts who can talk to you about it, but we get the chance to sit down with you. You need to know about the parish, you research in that, set you up with that person, go over it a little more. The administrator calls back and says, I have these 6 questions, answer them, I'm gonna go back to father, and I'll call you back. back in like 40 minutes and says, how do we sign up? Great. That was it. And I know it doesn't always work like that. Yeah.
Sometimes you kind of wonder if you got to get them at the right time.
Right.
You know,
It's been so unfair because it's got far we assign everybody to the pastor left in the diocesan office. So they have a new pastor that has you here, I'm going to see what you want to do. Take over.
try. Try this again.
GPS couldn't find the butterfly conservatory, so I drove around until they found it.
Oh, there you go. What you got there?
They got here a few minutes ago and they liked some butterflies.
Getting close. It's a little cool. I can see the dome.
There must be an indoor, right? It's kind of like Longwood Gardens.
I've never been there.
Great.
There's a big closed conservatory.
Yeah.
They have like some of the property.
We've got a Christmas trophy. Along the garden.
How they like it.
Yeah.
Oh, how was the game last night? Did they win? Okay. Oh, they did. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the town. Yes, mention that. Yes, you're right. That's right. The other book. Yeah. Because every time I'm on the phone, I don't hear the music. That's right. Actually, first that right on Lake Michigan. So it's when Whitaker came into
our area. He named it because he was from New York, so that's why. Yeah.
All right. All right. Are we close? We're ready? Turn that off. Okay. Awesome. Why don't we start with a prayer? Anybody feel the call to lead the opening prayer?
Heavenly Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this wonderful time together. We thank you for opening our hearts to this new birth. We just ask you to continue to be with us, to guide us. We ask you to send your Holy Spirit. Come, Holy Spirit, come now, come as you will. Come, Holy Spirit, come now, come as you will. Come, Holy Spirit, come now, come as you will.
Beautiful. So today's gospel, if you guys peeked already, anybody peek? House divided, cannot stand. Crazy. What's that? I did not pick that Bible today. I did not plan it around that day, that gospel reading. Although I was tempted, you know, how it always lines up for every national conference. Sue Benzie, before she stepped out, she said, you know, the whole giving birth and I wish she was here. I gotta wait for her to say it. But okay, so she'll be back in a minute. Let's move into, okay, so part one is parish profile. Part two, gain agreement. Very good student, Ida. Step three, intro conversation, this table. Awesome. Step four, triangle. Step five, close. We got it. We can do this. Okay, so we did very specific language. What's that?
Well, that's because she didn't count discovery question number one. No, it's not. Sorry, but but one is gaining agreement.
Oh, does it say part one? Okay, you know what? I'm confusing you guys because I put part one on the second page. So, okay. Yeah, okay. We'll say profiling is the first step, and then the discovery has 4 steps. Let's reword that. So the first thing you do is profile the parish, page 1. Okay, and then we're gonna start the discovery, which has 4 steps. Sorry for not being clear on that. I'm glad you pointed that out, Simona. So part 1 of the discovery has 4 parts. First one is gain agreement. Now we're moving into the second one. And the second one is the intro conversation. And we got a glimpse of that, Brian, with Rob. But set the stage for us, and then we'll role play it.
Okay, this is the super simple kind of methodology. It's so simple, I didn't even know if you can call it that. I'm not sure exactly how it just developed out of having lots of discoveries, and you kind of settle into a pattern of what works, and sometimes it's even unconscious. And then you go back and say, wow, this is how it's worked, but it's really super simple. This is what Rob and I did. And for whether it's a pastor or whoever it is, right? So the first thing is, after that, to gain agreement, you get a positive response. Yes, that makes sense. And then it's right into it, right into it. And you have to ask that question. That last question on the gaining agreement is, does this approach make sense? Don't use any other words. Does that approach make sense? Because you're looking for a yes answer, not a, oh, well, let's not time for conversation yet. You have to gain that agreement. One of the people on the E-team who's now an SME came and said, this isn't working. I said, what do you mean? They said, it doesn't work anymore for me. I'm like, okay, let's go through are you doing, oh yeah, I'm doing exactly the way we talked about it. Okay, let's talk about it. And then they went through and I said, tell me exactly the words you're using. So they get through this, well, they're kind of ad-libbing through that. Like, I wanted to make it my own. And at the end of that, it's like, so Father, how are you feeling about this? And I said, what did Father say? And this person said, Father said, not good. It's like, it was too much. It's super simple, get to it, gain agreement. Okay, so then the next, if it's a pastor, it's, Father, what was the date of your ordination? I learned this from Northwestern Mutual, right? Which was, what's your date of birth? It's like, you gotta get some momentum. You've got to get them, change their mind onto, get it fixed on something, a particular point, something they know, and something they can answer. They might not even want to go there yet. They might be apprehensive. Yes, it made sense. So they're thinking, yes, it made sense, but if you give them one little thing that they can answer, you've got momentum. And that's a very important thing, right, to them. It's the starting point for their story. So we're gonna, are you the pastor? Okay, because we could do it like a DRE or like we did with Rob. So the first thing is what's that? Yes. Let's do it both ways. Let's say if you were a priest, I would say, Father, what's the date of your ordination? Give me an answer. A date. That's it, right? And then you're ready with your next question. Where were you ordained? Right? Which diocese? Okay. And then already we're going to say, because what we want to do is, we're going to go from here. How do we get to someone's heart? How do we get to why they're here, really? So the next question is already, Father, if I could I ask, when did you first hear the call? You're only 3 questions in. And most of the time, Father says, oh my gosh, that's a story. Oh, I got a little time, And Father will say, and they may do a quick response because they're not sure how much you want yet, right? Did you ever do this? They say, oh, I was 6 years old. I had the vestments. I was playing priest, right? Or they're like, I'm a late vocation. I was married before, lost my wife. Interesting. Had you heard the call before that? Or, you're just rolling with this, and it's all about them. And they say, everyone's favorite topic is themselves, their own life. It's what they know best. It's what they have unique. They uniquely know this topic.
God gave us that gift.
Yeah, exactly. So if this is a DRE, it would be exactly what Rob and I did. So I'd say, Annie, so you're the director of religious ed. What does that mean? Are you over the kids, like up to a certain age, and they might say,
oh yeah, K through 8.
K through 8, or they might say,
high school.
Or they might say,
all of them.
All of them, everybody. Now everybody, right? In which case, you don't want to have any value judgment on them, by the way. Sometimes what will be natural when you do this is, oh, that's incredible. Oh, Father, that's wonderful. Oh, you must be so, hold back. It's not about us. It's about them. It's not about what we think about them yet. Just ask questions. Be genuinely interested. So you're over children and adults. Okay. So you're the director of religious ed for kids, like in this. So do you have a school?
No school.
So it's all religious education. Is it like family faith formation, or is it in the classrooms? Tell me about it.
We actually do both here. We offer a Wednesday and a Sunday morning class, but we also have a family faith formation once a month.
How long have you been doing that?
This is our first year, actually.
That sounds like an adventure. Okay. So I'd love to keep in contact as that unfolds. I'll have more questions for you. But, all right. So let's say we talked as much as we're going to talk about for the kids. There's a lot there. Like we could keep going. Right? Yeah. Say, okay, walk me through. Do you get them in kindergarten or first grade or whatever? And what does that look like? You've got this family faith formation idea. How many of your families are going to be in that area, you know, compared to the rest? And so you just keep asking questions because you're naturally going to want to understand what they're facing, what their model is, etc. Right? Okay, so at a certain point, it's like, okay, what about, you know, maybe they take you through First Communion, and so you do all the sacramental prep yourself. Oh no, we have catechists, right? You're asking all those kinds of things. And at some point, it's like youth. She said that she's over everything. Tell me about your youth ministry. What do you do, you know, for that? So we're already kind of into her role. Before getting too far into it, you know, especially when it has to do with kids, there's that kind of magical question. Like well, first of all, thank you for sharing some of your history with me. It seems like you think this work is very important. Is that true? I'm not saying this work is so praise you for doing it. And what do you think about this work? We want to get them to remember why they're here. That's why we're doing this, right? And it sounds like you take this work very seriously. And yep, do you work hard at it? I work extremely hard at it. More hours than I could ever get paid for. Right? Can I ask you a question about this? When it comes to these kids, you're pouring yourself out so that they can have this lifelong relationship with Christ. However they would put that, right? You could ask them, well, why do you work so hard? That's an even better question. Let them tell. Because I want people to know Jesus. Like, let them say it. If we say it, it kind of takes the wind out of the sail. Let them put the wind in the sail, right? And so you get to that point. Okay. So what is not just your biggest challenge? What's the biggest obstacle that exists between these children that you want to form as lifelong disciples and them actually becoming that? What's the biggest challenge? What's the biggest obstacle that exists to keep that from happening? And don't say anything else. And some of you have done this. What do people say when you ask them that? Yeah, they say the parents, or the slight variation might be, well, the culture, but you know, it trickles down right into the home, right? The faith isn't practiced in the home. They're saying some version of it's the parents, and they feel funny about saying that because they're not trying to disparage the parents, but it's so important. So whatever role they're in, you want to ask, what is the toughest thing that you face? That think about the actual goal and what keeps whoever they're serving from hitting their goal. It's a little different for you to say, what's your biggest challenge? Or sometimes people say, well, what's the biggest challenge in the parish? Oh my gosh, the plumbing. It's like, you know, what do you yes, Laura.
I recently had a pastor tell me that what they're doing is teaching the kids and blessing the parents, and they need to teach the parents and bless the kids.
That's rather profound. But it kind of begs the question then, and this is where we're going. Can you teach people that don't want to be taught? No. You can what? You can lead them to water, but you can't make them drink. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, and this is where our whole discovery process is going, right? Is a realization, because a lot of them think, no, we need to teach here. Of course they think that, because they know, the parable of the sower. In the parable of the sower, only one of the 4 areas was fruitful, right? She's right. Why was the one area fruitful only and yielded 100 or 60 or 30 fold? Soil was fertile. Yep, that's a really important part. What does Jesus explain when he's explaining the parable? He says about the first one, some of the seed was scattered on the path. That represents people that heard the word but didn't understand it. So the devil comes and snatches it up, right? What about those in the rocks? Well, that also, it's people heard the word and accepted it with joy, and it sprang right up, but there was no roots. They also didn't understand. And those that are closest to it, they're really close to that fertile field that's the vines. I'll show you a picture of this later. They grow up right, it's like right among the good, almost right by that good soil, but they've got 1 foot in and one foot in the culture and 1 foot in their faith life, and they get choked out, right? So they don't really get it. The good soil represents people that heard the word. Notice they all hear. Faith comes through hearing, Romans 10:17. The good soil represents people that heard the word and understood. So what that teacher is saying, she knows that. That teacher Dora was talking to knows that. They need to understand, or they're not going to be fruitful. It does miss the first part. She's missing the first part of what has to happen to that soil to make it so it's a good place for the growing, so people can hear and then want to understand, right? So it's a really, really important point.
So we're in this, we've done our gain agreement, and now we're in this intro conversation. What's that?
Yeah. It really depends on how much time you have and how much time they have, right? So could it be 10 minutes? We told them this won't take more than 10 minutes if we had to, right? And if we're not going to be driving an hour to get there. So that's enough to just give them an idea of what we do and for them to say, yes, this makes sense, and maybe a couple of questions. And then we got to schedule more time. But once we're into this part, you could do this for, I mean, you don't want it to go on forever. We're going someplace with this conversation because it's related to what they do. It's related to the faith, to the church, whatever their role is. We want it to be pragmatic. We want to understand them and things that are unique to them and their state in life and things like that. But it's not a psychology session, and it's not just a total friend-making session where it's like unbounded, yeah.
Yeah, the light bulb this week went off when you were like, our kind of our point of this is eventually to help them understand the challenge.
We want them to get to that place where they're expressing their challenges out loud.
Yeah.
And in a hierarchy, like in the ones that are most important. So we've asked them, what's your biggest challenge? Notice what that person said. It's the parents. You all said it. You all know it. But now they've said it. If no one ever asks them that, did you ever notice? Duh, everybody. We could ask 500 DREs that. They'd all say the same thing. How come they're not offended when you ask them? Because no one has said it out loud. Now more and more are, but most of them, they've never been asked that in a personal setting. They've never got to express that it's a knife in their heart, that the parents, you know what I mean? Like this is at the heart of everything that they've told you how they got there. They told you how they've left their old job. They don't get paid squat anymore. They work, 12 hours a day, and this is out of my control. and it's killing me because it's my whole mission in life. At least I have my primary, this is my call within the call, like Mother Teresa talks about, right? This is it. And they've just expressed to you out loud. I come from, my whole philosophy in, you call it sales, consulting, whatever, has always been this. If I say it, they doubt it. If they say it, they believe it. But it's more than that. If you ask someone something that no one's ever asked them before, and they've never said out loud, they think of your question. Concept of Lectio Divina, God's words are now your words because they're in your mind. You ask them a question, those words are now theirs. They formulate a response in their mind. When they say it out loud, they have defined themselves as a human being. They have said out loud what their biggest challenge is. Now it's out there. And they know it better, and you know it. Now what are we going to do about it? Does that make sense?
Two quick things. One is that if people are, some of you will be able to go home and do this. And you're going to learn things and feel more comfortable, or you'll be willing to try it, right? And others might be feeling like, I'm still not ready, or I want to hear someone else do it with me, right? So that's the beauty of what we're giving birth to here, is that if you're kind of feeling like, I still don't know if I could do this great, or I still want to hear someone else do it, this is the new beginning. We're going to have someone on your team that can do this for you. Brian just did it with Joe. Joe did the discovery, and Brian learned. Well, maybe Brian does a couple more, and guess what? He's going to learn, but maybe then he does a couple on his own and practices. Well, and now something didn't feel right, so now he has Joe do it, and now Brian does, right? Right?
Can I tell a little story about that?
Yeah.
So Margot, a couple weeks ago, I was included on an email string because Joe Dumendi had teamed up with Margot had identified a parish, and it was a low usage parish. And so they had like 4 users or something after some time. And so Joe is now one of our SMEs, by the way, but he was in the training role at the time. And he's incorporating all these things we're talking about. So, but Margot, it's amazing because one of the things we talked about is humility, excellence, and service, entrepreneurial spirit. So she's taken initiative in all this, and you'll see the quality of service for this customer is amazing, but also the humility, because in her email she's giving an update probably to you and to Joe, I think, or something. And so Margot starts delineating all of the things that happened. Like Joe and I talked, we had this discussion, then we got on and we did this kind of like it was a discovery with the customer. And here's what transpired from that conversation. And she starts listing off, well, this person, first, the people that we talked to, she helped direct them to, right, let's have a little plan, and here's what you're going to do. And then you could see it blossom out in the parish. So she's listed like 4 or 5 different areas. One was a couple individuals, like what they're doing in their respective role at the parish to take the tools that are within Formed and fit them into the process that has been tweaked, because now their whole idea of what is possible is expanded. So Margot's got them all going, and I'm like, Andy, look at Margot's giving away all the credit all along the way to everybody else, but she's amazing.
Margot, do you want to say anything about that experience that would add here, or any thoughts on that?
In a previous life, in the secular world.
Where did you work?
It was much like probably what you were talking about. Everybody wants to get to the 100% club, and everybody has their turf. And the nice part about working here with these group of people is that you realize you can't claim anything as your own. And whatever gifts you have came to you, they're given to you. Whatever work you're doing is not your work. And that was an adjustment for me, I have to say. And when we started saying the SMEs can do this and that, at first I was like, but I enjoy this part. But then I thought to myself, the harvest, is out there. And how many hours a day do you have? So I thought, I'm gonna try this. And Annie, I think, was the one who actually said, well, we have this thing. And I thought, okay, let me try this. It works, you guys. It really, really does work. And I think the beauty of it is that then you are the consultant. I'm bringing in this person, that person, and this person, and we're solving the parish's problems. I'm not like hawking CDs and hawking books and, oh, by the way, we have this Advent special. You know, it's all part of the plan. So I think it's a great strategy that we have, and I think we'll all be able to do so much more together than we can do as individuals. So not my glory, but honor and glory to God, you know, for letting us do this job, because it is pretty amazing, except for the days you want to quit.
So let's pause that, because we have parish profile, and then we have part 1, which is gain agreement. We have part 2, this intro conversation. Focus on the person, get to know them, ask questions, and eventually, hopefully, they're going to open up to the.
We're going to ask them.
We're going to ask them.
Tell me a little about your parish.
Well, yeah. Okay. So, is this the triangle part? Yeah. Okay, because we have the quiz. Okay, right. Okay. Okay. So turn the page. We're gonna move into a quiz. Or yeah, it's a fun little activity we put together. It's right here. It says numbers tell a story. You guys have that? Okay. So this is kind of moving into this triangle. And so I want you guys to take just a minute to take a quiz and put the answers. So if I could read it along. Number 1, in the average parish, what percentage of the people come to Christmas and Easter?
We haven't gone over that yet.
Oh, wait, I know, but aren't they guessing first?
Yeah, okay.
You know what I mean? And then we tell?
Gotcha.
Okay. Yeah. What percentage of the people come only to Christmas and Easter? Okay, put your answer down. Take a guess. What percent? You don't have to tell anybody else. Just this is a pre-test. This is what you do in the classroom with kids before they read a story. You ask them some questions and get their mind thinking, and it's really fun. It's a pre-test. Okay. Yep. Keep your pages. Went too far. A couple more pages. Number 2. How many registered households in the average parish in the United States? How many registered households? A number. How many parishes are there in the United States? And if you're in Canada, you should, oh no, because these stats equate with US, so we might have to modify this for Canada, as always, right, Dora? Okay, next one. What percentage of the parish, wait, no, how many households make up the core of a parish? How many households make up the core of a parish? Now that means like the people that are the core of the core, the people who are coming to everything. How many, yeah, right, Brian, what percentage makes the core? Yeah. Yeah, what percentage is the core? Okay, so some of you who are familiar with the triangle, right, it's the top of the triangle. Okay, next one. What percentage of the parish comes to Mass every week? It's the second layer of the triangle, for those of you who are familiar. What percentage of the parish comes to Mass every week? What percent only come at Christmas? Oh, I think I did that one twice, sorry. What percent rarely or never? So they come for baptisms, funerals. The typical Catholic parent, how long since their last confession? Now, number 9, how many baptisms in the year 2000? How many, literally, across the United States? Catholic and the Catholic Church. How many First Communions? Okay, so those kids were born and baptized in 2000, right?
Well,
Or-
so
Sorry.
I probably messed this up. So it's how many baptisms here in 2000? Of those kids, how many received their first communion? 8 or 9 years old.
Okay, yeah. So how many baptisms in 2000? And then the next question is, of those, how many made their first communion in 2009? That's the next question. So we got this batch of kids as a test example. And then after that, okay, well, now we have all these kids that made their first communion. Well, let's fast forward. How many of those kids that made their first communion actually got back, were confirmed? And of those who got confirmed, how many are actually going to Mass? And fast forward, how many confirmed will be practicing the faith in 10 years? And two more fun ones. What is the message of Romans 10:17? And what is the formed password for October? Oh, the trial password. If you have it memorized, you can share that baby all day long. Okay, so Brian's going to give us the answers and maybe a range if they got a range. Give yourself a point.
Yep. So let's do the answers as we go through, like what discovery was really like, okay?
It is 11:15, so anybody who's going to be going those first four that are going to go to confession, maybe jump out here in a few minutes, okay?
Okay. So we turned the corner on, if we're talking, the first thing is to, or the second thing really, after agreement, is to focus on the person. And now they've already shared with me some things. The focus on the person, and now you've got a lot of sharing going on there. And then at some point it's going to be natural, or you're going to sense the need to say, Father, tell me a little bit about your parish. And so at the top of that, like if you had to draw this on a piece of paper, we actually have a document that you could use to do this. But it actually, so you would write down how many households are represented in their parish. And you're going to know if they have two parishes or one. If it's one, they think of it all together. How many households are there? And then from there, the next question is, how many souls is that? Now that sounds funny. It's like, is it the same thing? No, it's not the same thing, right? There's one or more people in every household. Every human soul is important. We want them thinking of, okay, this is, plus it tells you something. Is it an aging population? Is it a really young population? The more number of souls in relation to the households, the younger the more teeming families that they have, right? That's kind of rare.
We're on part 3, so as long as you guys are all on part 3, at the top it says part 3. So households, number of souls.
Okay, so then we're going to concentrate on what does the parish look like, and we do this in a standardized way, which gives us an easy way to understand any parish and to help them understand it in a way that maybe they haven't. And this comes from right 2004, 2005. Mark Middendorf and I went to my parish, which is the parish he grew up in and where Tim Gray had his conversion. Okay, that pastor is the one I mentioned yesterday. He's an amazing pastor, very tuned in as far as evangelization. And he wanted to know, so what do you guys hear about? What's this idea for Lighthouse? What's Lighthouse going to be when it grows up, kind of a thing? And I said, well, it's a program for catechesis. And he said, why? And I said, because we listen to hundreds of talks, and we've been listening for years. This is how we relearned our faith as adults, and etc. He said, well, it's not exactly a curriculum, and he could tell we needed to understand more about the church. So he drew that triangle on a napkin, and he drew horizontal lines to segment it. And he said, guys, every parish kind of looks the same. And this is the conversation. The way I'm telling it to you, I've told to hundreds of pastors. So, Father, my pastor, you could say, a friend of mine was having this conversation with his pastor. Like,
15 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever. And here's what that pastor shared. It's never about us. It's never about how, no one likes the smarty pants. You know what I mean? And exactly what Margot said. What do we have that we haven't been given? Even this, every single thing you've heard this whole time, someone was given and is just passing along. Okay, so, but that little triangle, here's how we explain it today. It's taking this concept that Father drew on a napkin. Here's what Father said. Every parish kind of looks the same. First, at the very top of this little triangle, the tip, is what we're going to call it the core. All right, these are the people that are very invested in their faith. Can you picture who I'm talking about? Father or the DRE, Annie, or whatever. What are they going to say? Instantly, they know exactly who you're talking about, right? So these are the people that, if you have volunteers, this is where they come from. If you have people that are involved in, do you have Bible study or anything like that? Oh yeah, we've got a Bible study. How many people are in it? 10 to 14, I guess, but they don't all come all the time. But 10 to 15 usually. Okay. A subset of the core is learning about their faith. Only a sliver of it, a small number of it, right? So we're going to come back to that. So okay, you've got that. Anything else for these people? These are kind of your disciples, more or less. You doing anything else with these people, right? And you can write in your margin, next to it. You take note. What are they doing? Usually it's not a long list. Sometimes it might be. Usually, is it long? They're doing one or two things, and it's only the same people. You get the same people at that all the time? Oh, yeah. Okay, so let's go to the next group. And you want a number. You want to know how many households is that here? You said you have 1,000 families or households. The national statistic is maybe 5 to 10% are in this kind of core group. And if you need to draw, and that, by the way, that 5 to 10% provides over 80% of all the time, talent, and treasure that happens in the parish. What is that for you here? What's your experience? I say all the time, Father, what's your experience? Like, share a concept. What's your experience? Yes, it's not all listening. It's 2 ears, 1 mouth. So it's like, as you're guiding that, you can ask questions. You're also going to share a concept from time to time and get their take on it. What's your experience? It's still right back to them. Okay. So one thing that I share before going to the next thing is, being in that core group, it means they're invested in it. Let's see what it means and what it doesn't mean. It means these people are invested in their faith. Like, they come to Mass, of course, every week. Some of them come every day. If you have people in confession, it's either these are the only regulars in confession, right? There are other people that might come from time to time, but these are your regulars. Here's what it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean that these people know a great deal about their faith, even if they're very faithful in a sense, right? And does it mean that they're evangelizing? That they're so full of the Holy Spirit that they can't help but invite everyone that they know? Is that true? Do they do that at your parish? No, usually not. No, we need a lot more of that, right? Okay, so then you go to the next group. So that was the tip of the triangle. Then you go to the next one. All right, Father, then you have other people that come every week or pretty much every week. But they're not in that same place where they're that level of commitment. Do you have those people here? What does that look like here? And they'll tell you. What's that about? Yeah, they're checking the box. They come. And guess what? Those people, and it's okay for you to have some back and forth in this part of the discovery. It's you're sharing concepts, but you really want to understand their parish, but you also want to know what they think. So it's like, Father, do you have people that are just checking the box? They come every Sunday and then, oh yeah, and they'll finish your sentences. They'll say, oh yeah, we have a lot of that here, or whatever, how much of it you have. When it comes to, do these people understand much about their faith? No. In fact, this is what my pastor shared in that same lunch meeting. Every pastor has lived this. They understand this as a problem. Every pastor, first of all, knows the value of catechesis. That's part of why they became a pastor, to help people understand the faith. However, right? They might have created something, or a brother from seminary or someone they respect. When they invite everyone to adult formation, what happens? The same 12 people show up, 10 to 12 to 20, something with a T usually, STPs, right? And it's hurtful to Father, like, why don't they care? Why don't they come? They weren't interested. But why, right? And the answer, my pastor said, Monsignor Dan Hermes is his name, he said to Mark and I, because I'm like, why don't they come? You know, we were on fire by this point, like, we want to win the world for Christ and everything. And he said, because no one feels the need to be catechized unless they've first been evangelized. In other words, until people have encountered the Lord in a profound way and heard the message of the gospel in a profound way that's so meaningful to them, they don't care about learning about the faith. Why would they? Right? And I was still a little confused at the time. And I said, I'm not sure I get it. He said, Brian, in our parish, now remember, Bishop Hine said this was the most vibrant Catholic parish he's ever been in his entire life, right? This is the parish I'm talking about. My pastor is the one that made it so with the Lord. And he says, Brian, in our parish, when you're in Mass, you look around yourself at Mass, most of the people around you are not yet evangelized. Like, what do you mean not yet evangelized? They haven't encountered the Lord in a way that's changed their entire life as an adult. Does that make sense to anyone or everyone? Yeah. Okay, but we want them to express it. This is their idea to do it. If you're there with someone in person, I promise you, if you do this enough, they'll grab your pen. Or if you have one sitting there, they'll say, well, here's what it's like in my church, and they'll spin it around, and they'll start drawing on your little triangle. You know, you do a triangle, or they want to express this. They don't have someone to talk with about this. 90% of the time, they love this conversation. Okay, so I don't want to belabor it too much. It's pretty much it, right? Then you go to the next one. And so they've already expressed, you know, oh, I forgot to say. So, Father, my pastor told me, so if you're mad at someone, be mad at him. My pastor told me that the same 12 people show up or whatever. Have you experienced this in some way? I ask him specifically like that because it might be like, well, we get, 40, but we got a whole lot of people here. And yes, they'll always say, almost always, yes, I think every pastor has, right? And then you go to the next one. So the next group is, and by the way, now the data is probably getting a little old. The data 6 years ago was that 24% of a parish came to Mass every week. Okay, and and so you could, and the studies are all different. You might say, well, there's 7% in that top group and 24% here. So this is really only 17%. You know what I mean? The first two together make up 24. It doesn't matter. That's actually all part of the conversation. It's not exact numbers anyway. So, but you want that picture and you want them thinking of it this way. And then you go to the next group. So, Father, do you get an increase in people at Christmas or Easter? Oh, yeah, right? It's not always, oh, yeah, anymore, by the way. Some areas, they say, no, we've had a decrease. And we can talk more about that later, but it's not normal, but it's normal for them. Lots of them do say we no longer get double, but we get maybe 50% more, or it's still, we don't have as many full masses as we have. We used to have to add a lot more masses. Now it's just that our masses are packed full. We don't have to add them. Do you get that? Do you guys hear that kind of thing? So it's a little across the board, but typically that for Christmas and Easter is a quarter of the parish for Christmas and Easter, right? That go to both. The number that come to just Christmas, one study shows, is 32% of people that come to Christmas Mass. It's the only Mass they come to all year. They don't come to Easter. Oh no, so I said that wrong. Christmas, if you added the people that only come to Christmas or only come to Easter or that come to both, right, that is about a quarter of the parish, 25 to 35% of a parish typically, usually. depends on the study that you look at, but the point is that it's kind of like a quarter of them come very regularly, a quarter of them come, you know, Christmas, Easter type folks. And by the way, do you do anything to plant a seed with those people when they come? Have you ever, what do you mean? Have you ever given away a book? Oh yeah, we gave away Matthew Kelly books, or we gave away Lighthouse books, or I don't know, who does Rome Sweet Home? We gave that away, right? So you're planting that seed in their mind, like, okay, is it important to reach them? If it's the only mass they, for 32%, it's the only mass they come to all year, one study said, how important is it to do something that makes it that it's not see you next year, maybe it's see you next week, right? And then the last one is the biggest part of the triangle, and it's 40 to 50% of your typical parish. People rarely or never come to mass. One priest said, this is the hatch, match, and dispatch. Baptisms, weddings, and funerals, right? The point is, it's really, when do Catholics come home for sacraments? It might be checking the box, right? But they're coming, if there's something like to do with the sacrament, they're still coming in fewer and fewer and fewer numbers, but they're still coming. Now, that is changing, because like Annie was saying, you know, the number, by the way, of those that were born and baptized in the Catholic Church in the year 2000 is 1 million. It's just under 1 million people were born and baptized in the Catholic Church in the U.S. in the year 2000. How many of them received their first communion? Well, we lost about 200,000 between baptism and first communion. What about between first communion and confirmation? It gets worse. We lost another 250,000 after that. So in other words, barely over half of all those that were baptized in the year 2000 ever got confirmed. To make it really exciting is that of those that are confirmed when they're, you know, 14, 15, 16 years old, what percentage of them are in Mass on Sunday? Almost every youth minister in the country says just about 20, 10 to 20. Some say 10 if they're in the really big parishes, but on the average, it'd be about 20% of those that are the confirmandi. They're being confirmed. Only 1 out of 5 of them is in church now when they're 15 years old. Is that going to get better in the next 8 years by the time they're 23, go through high school and then college? It gets much worse. So then you've got 90% of people, and this, I know, remember, humility is seeing things the way they really are. That's what our job is to just know where things really are. So we say, what is your experience here? How many, so now you're turning the corner, right? How many baptisms are you having a year? But it's not just about that. There's a qualifier in every, is it still on there? After every statement, there's a little question that you can ask. Are they still on there? Okay, so we'll put them in.
Yeah, they're in later. We'll do that.
Okay, we'll do that when we come back. Okay, yeah, that's okay. So yep. So the point. Oh yeah. Okay. So that's basically a good stopping point. So you get through, like, this is a profile of their parish that they've just expressed, right? And then yeah, we'll get the next part after.
Yeah. So this is all leading up to. This is very strategic, very planned out. So we haven't like gotten to the conclusion yet, right? So we'll do that when we come back, because we're gonna, Brian said there's a little few sentences you can say when you're talking about baptism or marriage or confession. You know, now we'll come back and we'll go one more step, and then we get to do the close. Okay, so Brian, can we just give him a big round of applause? A big hug. And it's so fun to do this. So fun. Let's say Hail Mary for Julie. She's not feeling very well, so she's up in her room listening. But I wanted to say Hail Mary for her now, and I'm not really sure how extensive it is. She might be popping back, but let's say Hail Mary, and then what we'll do, if you want to go up and grab your coat. Mass is at 12:10. It's 11:30 now, so we have plenty of time. But if you want to go grab your coat and then we'll plan to meet here at 1:45 in about 15 minutes. And if the group's gone, just walk over. It's right there. You'll see the big steeple. Just take a left and then a right, and it's literally, or put it on your phone. St. Mary's Church. Yeah, go out the front door, go down here, go out the front door, and you can see it. So you're kind of walking that way, and you just take a left and then a right, and you're going to walk right into it. But we'll be in a group. But what time are we meeting? Just in about 10 minutes. Just go grab your coat and come right back. Okay? If you want to go. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women. Blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Okay. All you guys who are listening, thank you so much. We'll be tuning back in after lunch. Okay, great. Does anybody else want to ride with Brian? Okay. Thank you so much. On the way home, you might have a few takers.
Annie, 2:30? 2:30? For it to come back on?
The schedule, good question. So 2 o'clock is a little activity, and then 2:30, 2:15, let's say.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean 2 o'clock we'll be kind of starting again. We have a little activity, and then we'll jump back in at 2:15. So thank you all. Mary Beth Finster's in the house, unbelievable.
Hi, Annie. I love it. I love it. Thank you. I'm sorry to hear Julie's not feeling well. I'm going to be praying for her too. You're doing an amazing job. Tell Brian, way to go with Zoom. I'm so proud of you.
I will. You inspired us, Mary Beth. It's unbelievable what you're doing with it. So
well, I can actually house clean and listen to you guys. So it's like great. I was so excited.
That's awesome. We'll see you soon.
All right. Love you. Bye.